Welcome to the Commissioner Evaluation Show. My name is John McGlynn. McGlynn is in. Let the fun begin. I'm here with Justin Taylor, JT Orange, and myself. Will have a lot of fun today, just skimming through Week 11 waivers, injuries from Week 10 to going forward, some team news as well as some team evaluations. But before that, I get to my little personal life stuff. My daughter Margaret's 19th birthday was yesterday. My third oldest and my oldest daughter, she got to spend the day with her grandma shopping for makeup and then the Cheesecake Factory and all that fun stuff. After that, we went to this place called the Sugar Factory for food and shakes. Place is pretty cool. It was like a mix between Portillo's and the candy place you see in like the Wreck-It Ralph movie. Is shout out to John C. Riley for Wreck-It Ralph, a fellow Blood Rice Crusader. We got all kind of rainbow burgers, Kool-Aid with dry ice in it that fogged up and stuff, and everything was a la carte, very pricey, like $250 with a tip for a couple sandwiches and stuff. It was kind of crazy. It was a 2 hour window. Like when you go in there, you check in, you got 2 hours sitting in your booth, and they kick you out. Everything was kind of weird. Like and then they had all the old school candy stuff. You go in there, get a bag, and they weigh it by the ounce, and you pay for what you get. It's kind of pick and choose everything. So we had grilled cheese, onion soup, chicken sandwich, couple shakes and stuff. Nothing crazy, but it was good photo opportunities for my daughter's birthday. They brought a candle out there. Well, the candle was $5. Like I said, everything's a la carte. You get a scoop of ice cream when your birthday. She actually had her license says it was her birthday, and they still charged her $5 to get a candle, for her birthday. So it is what it is. I don't know what's new with you. Anything else going on with you?
Restaurant retail industry is tough these days. You got to charge what you can for things. It's pretty crazy. It's my son Walker's ninth birthday today, so that was pretty awesome. Going by fast. Went to the trampoline park. Don't know if you've ever been to one of those. I try not to do anything because I'll hurt myself. So I just sit there and watch him and let him jump around and get crazy and sweat everywhere. But I had a great time when got some Mexican after that, and he actually got a free dessert. They gave him a free fried ice cream. He loved it. So he's upstairs playing all his new video games he just got. So he's loving life right now.
Video games were the big thing back in the day. I remember when, okay, we're gonna date myself real fast. When Madden first came out, like I would get Madden on the day it came out every year. Like the kids get like the Halos and stuff now, But I mean, I had in television and then Atari 2600, with Enduro and Pitfall and all the rest of the cool games around there. And then Nintendo came out and they had Blades of Steel and Tecmo Bowl and all those stuff, all the other games that I got behind me right now. It's super cool, but the game's not. My son buys discs now and he puts them in his computer, and
Yep.
people are probably turning this thing off right now because they're listening to this about like this old man talking about video games. He's got a board and it's like contoured for your hands. You like press certain buttons, and I don't even know. He doesn't even use a mouse. He uses both hands on this weird board and he plays video games with it. And it's like holy cow! But it's
Oh man,
you
they're
know
advanced. They are really advanced right now.
What they
It's
get
pretty nuts.
the thing is, like, I go to bars to talk to people. I don't talk over it, but they meet all their friends on the video games, and there's 5 or 6 of them playing, and they're all talking to each other, making fun of each other, "F you, you this and that, whatever, everything else," and so they have a good time. It's almost like they're hanging out in a bar. They can see each other, and they're doing stuff, and they're virtual people, and they knock each other out with their butt of the guns and stuff. Sneak up behind each other. It's 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 cool that they're doing that kind of stuff, but I wish they would just, as the kid in me, I wish they were out playing basketball more or baseball more, loud league, 16-inch softball, like anything, kind of just get out of the house a little bit more. But that's the way it is, It is.
Yeah, my son, he's a gamer all the way through and through. He started playing video games about year and a half old. I was showing videos of him playing when he was about 1.5 the other day, just jumping around, holding the controller. People were like, "Does he know what he's doing?" I'm like, "Yeah, he knows how to play the game." They're like, they couldn't believe it. But yeah, he loves video games. We just got done with our first flag football season, so trying to get into sports. But I tell you what, being on the games and be able to do it online, during COVID was huge for him because he didn't get to see a lot of his friends and get able to talk to kids and saw the interaction was kind of nice.
Yeah. That's I think that saved a lot of the missing their graduations and senior proms and homecomings and football games and everything. I couldn't imagine what it was like to go through that kind of situation. So I feel sorry for the kids in that aspect, but yes, I understand where now they're used to playing online because they're stuck in the house for 2 years. They didn't have an option to do anything else,
Hmm.
but it is what it is. So, uh, I would think the most popular kind of segment for this situation right now, because we're in mid-season, we're gonna drop to. We're gonna go to. We're gonna start with waiver wires this week. Just start a little bit different. So waiver. We'll start with the like quarterback positions. Uh, I so far, I mean Ryan Tannehill's coming back, decent quarterback. These are mostly 12-team leagues. So super flex. Taylor Heineke looked okay. Kenny Pickett is a guy I'm trying to buy everywhere right now. Mariota is somebody that people are going after. I do not want Mariota anywhere. I understand he's got legs and all that kind of stuff, but I would much rather have Kenny Pickett than anybody that's kind of wavering this week as far as people who. What quarterbacks are you targeting this week in Superflex?
Yeah, I think for me, it's a big question of whether it's dynasty or redraft on what you're trying to do. I'm in some redraft leagues where if you got a short bench and not, it's only maybe a 12 or 14 team league, there's a chance somebody dropped like a Matt Ryan or a Tannehill when they were injured to try to clear up some space on their bench. So I've been able to go out there and grab a few of those guys. John Wolford's a guy that I don't love at all, but I need him desperately to play in some situations where I have Stafford. So I went out and put quite a bit of money on my waiver wires tonight, hoping to get him tomorrow. In a 2 QB league, I'm in trouble. Trevor Lawrence is on a bye week, and I don't have a third QB now with Stafford hurt. So I'm going to have to start John Wolford in that situation, and trying to pick him up in another league just in case. Scott Fishbowl is one of them. I have Stafford as my third QB, so I'm trying to figure out can I get Wolford and stick him in there if I'm going to have to play a wide receiver, running back in my flex. So those are the kind of guys you're looking at. If somebody did jump out on Matt Ryan, jump back in on Matt Ryan. He's a guy, if he plays, he can score points for you. Taylor Heineke is not a guy that's going to score you a lot of points, but he's a guy, if he's out there, he's worth grabbing. I'm playing him in quite a few Superflex leagues where we were really thin at QB. So I've been filling him in until Wentz gets back. Timetable on him returning, I haven't heard a lot out there right now. I've heard that Heineke's playing this week. I've heard there's a chance Wentz comes back. So I don't know about that if he's going to be useful, but I've been grabbing Heineke, stashing him everywhere I can. And with all these bye weeks and everything that's going on with the injuries, if you don't have your main quarterbacks back up, you got to go get them right now. You got to get them immediately, especially in a dynasty league. You don't want to have that position where you can't fill it, and you don't want to have a start where you're starting a guy in a spot that's going to get you zero. So if you've got a deeper team or deeper league, make sure if you got Kyle Murray, you got Colt McCoy, one of those guys. If you got a Stafford, get Wolford. Even if those guys aren't going to put up a ton of points, you got to have them at least just get a start out of them.
Yeah, look at Carolina. I mean, nobody knew what to do. It's like a circus there. Now PJ Walker's out. Baker Mayfield's going to start this week, and then who knows? Halfway through the game, they might jump to Sam Darnold. They don't know what they're doing over there. They're a handful of games away from a brand new quarterback anyway. But if you're in a super flex, I mean, you almost have to have Baker and Sam Darnold on your roster if everybody else is gone, and that's who you're depending on. And like with the bye weeks and your guys and injuries and everything else, it is what it is. I mean, I don't know what happened to Baker, why he's so bad, or why he just can't put two and two together. It's terrible to watch those games. Sam Darnold did okay, but he hasn't played at all this entire season.
So there's another spot. I have a lot of leagues that I'm really desperate at QB, and I went out and traded or picked up. If I had Darnold or Baker Mayfield, I went and got the other guy last week or 2 weeks ago. You're still probably going to slightly overpay, but people are kind of getting out on him. I was able to get Baker Mayfield for a third in a 14-team Superflex this week. And the guy was crying when he traded him to me because he's like, I traded Baker Mayfield last year for Derek Carr straight up. Ooh. And he's like, now I'm getting rid of him for a third. So, but you're going to have teams where they need some space on their lineup. If they've got enough QBs, they might just be so sick of the guy that they want to get rid of him. So those are two guys I would go grab. If you're just looking to fill some spots, Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold, if they're both out there, get them. If you got one, go get the other one, either off the waiver wire, or if you can trade a third or fourth round pick for them, it might be worth it this year if you're competing for sure.
Yeah, you kind of have to. It is, it is what it is. But next, the most important position is running backs. Isaiah Pacheco got most of the carries. He kind of made a name for himself this week with the Chiefs, carrying the ball a lot more than. I mean, I just don't see how they go back to the old wrestling, the CEH kind of game. I don't see him. I think he's done for. I think it is what it is. He's the guy to get this week. Rashad White pretty much made a name for himself. Started and played pretty well. Didn't have the receiving prowess that people kind of expected, but he led the team in carries. So Jarrett McKinnon was, we're talking about Chiefs here, I guess, again. Another guy that, if he's a receiving back in Kansas City, it's a pretty valuable situation. So Elijah Mitchell, 49ers, I don't understand why they want to go, why they constantly have to have so many running backs in San Francisco, especially when you have probably the best running back uh, in the league right now on your team. You want to split the carries almost evenly. I don't get it. Jalen Warren, just for I think he's pretty good, but at the same time, he's more of a definitely a high end handcuff to have. So, um,
Yeah, I've
any
been getting some offers for Jalen Warren. If you haven't picked him up or he's not taken in your league, I'd go out there and get him. He's a guy right now that if anything happens to Najee, he becomes really valuable. And with the bye weeks and the injuries that have been happening at running back, I found myself playing him in a second RB or a flex spot a couple times this last week. And he got enough run that he scored double digit points. And depending on your scoring format, he scored double digit points. So he's a guy, if he's still out there, go get him. I would be very surprised if he is. Most people, if they're paying attention, have got him 2 weeks ago, probably. But he's a guy that, if you can go out there and get him, he's a move to make. It's just that they're right now, the waiver wire is getting real thin. And I usually don't go crazy on handcuffing the running backs, but this is a situation where you might want to start looking at a guy that's second or third string down the line. Pick a guy up because just in case. I mean, look at Khalil Herbert for the Bears. Was been getting a ton of carries lately. He's been, out touching Montgomery the last couple of weeks, and all of a sudden, bam, today, IR, 4 weeks. So if they decide crazily, instead of going, oh, Monty's our guy, let's just pound the rock with him, I could see them get Tristan Ebner in there and get touches from him. So he's a guy I'd be out there looking at. If Tristan Ebner's still out there for the Bears, I'd be picking up because one little tweak of an ankle or something for Monty, and all of a sudden Ebner becomes an every down back on an offense that all of a sudden is flying high and scoring 30 points every week.
Are you going after a guy like Brian Robinson right now because he has so many carries? I mean, they nickel and dime the Eagles last night. It was almost like they just warmed down, and it was defense and run 3 yards in the cloud of dust, and 3 yards in the cloud of dust, and 3 yards in the cloud of dust, and the Eagles had no answer for it. They just sat there, and it was like they were in a corner of a ring, just getting smacked when they just playing defense the entire time. There's nothing they can do about it. So
yeah, if you get Brian Robinson, I wouldn't mind trading for him. There's still going to have guys in your league that probably have him on their roster that maybe don't totally believe in him, and maybe they'd be willing to give him up for a reasonable price, maybe a late second. I doubt a third would do it. You're probably going to have to be a mid to late second to get a Brian Robinson in a dynasty league. But he's a guy. If for some reason you're in a short league or, like I said, small bench, and Brian Robinson's not on a team yet, you need to go out and grab him immediately. I mean, he should be rostered by everyone. But if you need a second RB going down the stretch, depending on what somebody else has, if they're 3 or 4 running backs deep, you might be able to make a trade and get him in there, and he's at least going to get you touches.
I guess this is what the question was what would you pay for Brian Robinson, full well knowing that he's probably just going to be an early down back, not a PPR back kind of thing. Like, would you pay early to mid second for Brian Robinson? And let's say a 12 team, 25 to 30 man roster kind of thing like that with 2 running back spots and a couple of three flex spots. Is he worth a second round pick next year? I mean, we're getting pretty close to the end of the season. I wouldn't do that. I'm not a big Brian Robinson fan.
I agree with you. I wouldn't either. I'm not a Brian Robinson guy, but I do have like 1 or 2 teams competing where I am just paper thin at RB. And if I could maybe get him down the stretch here where I have a shot to win it, where my running backs are really bad and I just need 1 running back or 2 running backs to make it work, I might look out there and go, I'll give a second for Brian Robinson. Normally, I would not. Again, I'm not a big Brian Robinson guy. I'm actually kind of shocked that he's played as much as he has this year. I still think Antonio Gibson's better, but I don't know if me thinking that matters at all. He just seems like more of an explosive player who could catch out of the backfield a little bit better. And they've been playing without J.D. McKissick, so that's the other question. If J.D. McKissick was back, how much would he be getting third down passes and little dump offs. So that's a toughie. Again, team dependent. I wouldn't pay that, but if you had to on a team that was competing and you just say, hey, had Leonard Fournette go down or another running back, go down, and you don't really have a good secondary guy behind him, I think it's a slight overpay, but I think that's what you have to pay. I just can't
Yeah.
see anyone giving him up for anything less than that.
I mean, you're playing these leagues to win the money. That's to pay for the next 3 or 4 years after you win. I guess that's what it's all about. But if you make that gamble for a mid-second and you put paying for Brian Robinson, and there's so many possibly better options next year in the mid-second round than Brian Robinson, I think if you're in win now, if you're one of the top 3 or 4 teams, it's probably worth the gamble. Is but that's about as far as that goes. Other players that are like Gus Edwards, I'm looking at sleeper right now for these are kind of funny. I haven't been in redraft in a long time besides a fishbowl, so I see the guys who are on here. Let's see who else. There's not too many running back. Rashad White obviously is someone that we're
Yeah.
taught. He's a must add right at this point in time. He's been a must add for a while. Everybody kind of saw this coming where the Lombardi Lenny situation was going to uh, kind of exhaust. How do you say? Put itself out. So we'll talk about him later, but Rashad White is definitely an ad. Elijah Mitchell, you kind of have to have him.
Like I
Keontae
said,
Ingram,
yeah, like I said, that's the big thing for me right now is because it's such a just shot in the dark on who might get playing time. If I'm looking at 3 or 4 running backs that who we have no idea, I look to see who do I have, and that guy's his backup because of injuries and bye weeks, that stuff. I'd almost go that if I got, I mean, you look at say, I can't believe Benjamin just got cut out of nowhere. So
right?
he's on Houston, but Houston's had a million different backups. Does he go there and automatically become Pierce his backup? If he's out there now, he got cut. Like I dropped him in a couple leagues because I didn't know if he's going to get picked up by anybody, and I needed the roster space because I had guys coming off IR. If I have Damian Pierce, I'm probably taking a shot on a Benjamin just in case something happens to him. If I've got James Conner, I'm probably taking I'm picking up Ingram. At this point, you it's so thin at running back with injuries and buys. You almost have to just make sure you have someone playable at this point.
You know what sucks because I had Keontae Ingram like in a lot of leagues. I drafted him in a couple leagues, and throughout the season, I'm like, there's just so many more value. I'm in a 30 team, 12 team, 30-man rosters, no kickers, no defense, and I got Keontae Ingram was a unfortunate like a roster cut after the first couple weeks, and I hate I got him real late, so it wasn't like the end of the world by cutting him, but it does kind of suck when they come back. These guys they do nothing
It
and they come back.
hurts.
Like,
It hurts.
what was it really worth picking up? So and so for 2 weeks. Why do I do this to myself? I have
I
zero
know.
patience in Dynasty. It's almost like I should go back to playing redraft. So
But it feels so good when you hold those guys and they hit. It just feels so good. You
it
can hold
does.
on to them just long enough.
Maybe I'll feel that love one day, but as of right now, I'm not a big feeler of it. But Kyron Williams is somebody I like too.
Hmm.
I don't. He didn't do very well this week. Nobody on the Rams is good, but Kyron Williams on Notre Dame, I liked him a lot. So it's just somebody I'm willing to throw a dart at anyway. And like you said before, Tristan Edner, if it, if something happens to Montgomery and Ebner's a really good back. I
Hmm.
think people
I
don't
like him
really
a lot.
understand how good Tristan Ebner is. Khalil Herbert, the Bears are just they're kind of stacked at running back. That's a good situation to have, and especially I understand they're going to lose Montgomery. That it is what it is. But to have Ebner, Herbert, and some waiver wire, some free agent kind of walk in as be number 3 back in Chicago, they got a lot more plugs to plug in Chicago than running back. If they had these guys who are good and young and cheap, and they could plug one more, somebody as a number 3 running back, a developmental guy, they're in a real good spot to go after more offensive linemen, defense, a good receiver out of early in the drafts. They have a lot of spots to fill. So they got real lucky with their running back situation. So I'm as much as a doubter I was for the Bears and with all the stuff they did, but I'm glad they're doing a rebuild. Everything just kind of seemed to be working out for them. And the best thing about that is they're winning. I mean, they're losing, and these
They're
guys are
playing
getting
good.
they're playing very good. They're losing, and they're getting better draft picks because of it. And they're going to shed more salary cap and be like the $160 million next year to go after some really good, real good free agents, real good draft picks. And I'm this is a great situation for the Bears to be in. I'm kind of I'm kind of stoked. I still want them to sell the team to somebody who cares about football instead of the bottom dollar, but at the same time, I'm all about it. Wide receivers, Kadarius Tony, Christian Watson, those kind of deals. Donovan, what do you think about Donovan Peoples Jones? I think he's just kind of like a best ball guy. I've never been. I had a
Mhm.
lot. He's an MVS kind of twin as far as I'm
Yeah,
concerned.
I agree with that. I think he's very similar to MVS. He's a guy that is going to run 85, 90% deep routes, go routes down the field. So you're going to get those huge games out of him. Um, but you're not going to get consistency. He just doesn't run enough uh, patterns, catchable ball patterns as they're throwing them up D to him all the time. He's going to have games like he did last week where he had a couple catches, big output yardage wise and a touchdown or whatever. But again, he's a guy on at best ball. I like him. I mean, if I'm putting him in my lineup in a flex spot, I'm probably just saying a prayer as I do it.
Yeah.
But the same thing with MVS. He's another guy. It's like, man, if I have him on a best ball team, him, McCole Hardman, all those guys, I like him in a best ball because they can have some big weeks here and there. But counting on those guys to give you at least 10 points a week. I mean, those are the guys that can easily get you a 1 for 3 or a zero
Right.
dog, and you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm like, that just murdered me. I mean, and the perfect example is I was in a 14 team league, ton of injuries, ton of bye weeks. I was just desperate for a last starter, and I put Zach Pascal in over Amari Rogers. Seems very insignificant, right? Just, I mean, you're like, I'm getting nothing out of these guys. Zach Pascal, 2.5 points, Amari Rogers, negative points, and I won by 3. So
No.
it's like it could be that much of if you can't as long as you don't get a zero out of that guy. I mean, Zach Pascal seems ridiculous, but 2.5 won me, and if I would have played Amari Rogers, I would have lost. So sometimes it's those little things like that. That's just the fantasy gods either smiling down on you or laughing in your face when it goes against you.
I'm not sure that Christian Watson's going to be able to repeat this performance. I mean, that 3 touchdowns in any game is unheard of for a lot of rookies anyway. But it's
Here, yeah, here's what you do: find the Packers fan in your league and immediately offer him Christian Watson if you got him.
yeah.
He's going to overpay because all of a sudden it's everything he hoped and dreamed was going to happen all year, and it just happened. And now he's going to be like, yes, this is the number one guy I knew he was going to be when they picked him. And if you look for that guy and trade him, I don't have a whole lot of shares of Christian Watson just because where I drafted in most of my leagues, I was right in that George Pickens, Watson, out Pierce, Sky Moore range, and I was
Hmm.
more of a Pickens. Sky Moore, Alec Pierce guy than I was a Watson guy, so I didn't take him in many leagues. But I've got him sitting on the taxi squad in a few leagues, and I'm thinking about offering him up to a couple of people I know are Packers fans to see if they want to fight for a first rounder next year, or see if I can throw a multiplayer deal together.
Somebody wants to put a big piece of cheese on their head and paint their face yellow and say, "I got Christian Watson. Look at me go." That's the way that's the way it is. So, who would you rather take? Would you rather pick up Paris Campbell or Nico Collins right now in the dynasty league? If you had the two options, you had one roster spot. You had Paris Campbell or Nico Collins to pick up.
Well, I hate to say this, and you know what I'm going to say. For me, it's Paris Campbell because I've got him on
Boo.
50% of my leagues. I've got Paris Campbell on 50% of my leagues.
Yeah.
I just do. But I've been investing in Paris Campbell since he was a rookie, waiting for him to hit, waiting for him to hit, and at some point he wasn't worth enough to get rid of, so I just kept him. And he's solid in a deeper league. I mean, if you're not in a deep league, he's probably either sitting at the end of your bench or on the waivers. But in a deeper league, I've got him in a couple of 12, 14 team leagues, and he's playing most weeks for me now as that last flex play. If Ryan's in there and the way the way the Colts looked last week, I have a lot more confidence going Paris Campbell going forward. The Texans just look like they're out of sync. I think Mills is a decent QB, but he's not giving Nico Collins enough target share. I feel like if Nico Collins was just peppering him like Heineke's peppering McLean or McLaren, I would be like, I'm all over it. But he's just like, even when he does throw, it doesn't seem like he gets a ton of looks. He's throwing a lot of tight ends, and you've seen they just want to pound the rock with Pierce. I think they've decided we're going QB next year, and they're just going to try it. They've got that last place spot locked up right now. They're going to play pound the rock, try to stay close, and then hopefully get a QB next year. So that's my own problem with Nico Collins. Now for the future dynasty, I might want to add Nico Collins right now if he's laying out there somewhere because he's a guy that could be worth something next year if they get a Bryce Young or a CJ Stroud and all of a sudden he becomes a little more valuable.
Yeah. It's I get it. I get it. Whatever. I'll keep Nico on my team, right? It's, Traylon Burks is somebody that should be added in redraft and dynasty. That's I mean dynasty he's already been known. Nobody's going to let go. Traylon Burks is a top like 5 pick in almost every dynasty draft, so he's not going anywhere. But he's been hurt all the time with all these stupid injuries, and it's like in redraft, people are like, it's you get a real bad taste in your mouth real fast when
Hmm.
when you pick up these guys and they're just constantly hurt. It's a foot or it's a back, and this time he had a turf toe, and it's like, man, people get real sick of these guys real fast from that. Of the best ability is availability as far as people are concerned. On their fantasy team, but he is a stud, and there's not many options on that team. So if Traylon Burks available, you definitely have to go after somebody like that.
I mean, Westbrook Inky just had the game of his career last week. I mean, when he
Yeah,
had 3 touchdowns or something insane. I had him on 2 rosters this year, and I eventually dropped him when they weren't throwing the ball at all.
right.
I was like, "There, this he's just taking up a spot. I need to get somebody else on here." Once I had buys and injuries, so of course I drop him before he has that monster week. But at some point, they're going to have to throw the ball a little bit more. I mean, they've just run the ball. I think they're either 1 or 2 in the league in run percentage. They just do not throw the ball very often. But Tannehill's going to have to air it out a little bit more down the stretch here. I think for the Titans.
Yeah, is Henry got something wrong with his foot again? Is that what the kind of there's I haven't heard anything, read anything about it, but I'm hearing that there's another possible foot injury, like not enough to have surgery or keep him out, but enough to like hamper him a little bit during the games. If that's the case, Tannehill and Burks are both pickups, as for because they're going to have to start airing the ball out. Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's maybe a situation like Najee Harris earlier in the year where he's got a little bit of a bump foot, but it's like not serious enough to keep him out. Like you said, not serious enough to put him on IR. But when you're a big, heavy guy like both those guys are, if you've got a little bit of a pain in your foot, I mean that's a lot of weight going down on that foot every time you run the ball. So if they're going to start limiting his carries, that I mean that changes a lot of what the Tennessee Titans want to do. As you saw last year, they were number one seeds, somehow held on, even though they did not play well down the stretch without Henry. Um, and I think it could be another situation if he ends up getting hurt or going out for a while. No Deontay Foreman to back him up this year. It'll be interesting to see what the Titans do, and just because of that, long term, do they want to throw the ball a little bit more during games to try to keep him healthy?
that was the worst number one seed in the history of football without Derrick Henry on that team. So, and it showed
Oh,
real fast.
Oh yeah, it was bad. I was hoping the Steelers or the Colts would have got them in the first round last year because I was like, both these teams can beat them. So, but then yeah, that didn't happen. Colts missed the playoffs. The Steelers got the Chiefs. So that's that went the complete opposite way I wanted to go.
Yeah. Tight ends Cole Komet. That's somebody. He's probably on rosters already, especially for Bears fans. They're not going to let go of Cole Kmet, and tight end's such a funny position too. Where I mean, Kmet didn't do anything besides until the last couple games. All of a sudden, he pops up, two touchdowns 2 weeks in a row. He's on fire now. And if you that one play, it had to be like a cover one with it had to be the other safety had to be a spy or maybe at a blitz or something. I didn't see the camera paired off, but I saw Komet go right in front of the other safety who ran forward. There was a total breakdown in coverage, and Komet was 20 yards away
Oh,
from anybody on the field, wide open. So, I mean, my blind grandma could have made that one.
yeah.
That throw, and
Well, I
it's
think that was the Fields factor. I think that safety all of a sudden thought Fields was going to run, started coming up, and then it was like, oh, he's wide open. I picked up Cole Kmet a couple dynasties. He's on somebody's roster almost. I mean, there's nobody dropping him in dynasty, but in redraft, I was actually able to go out and pick him up in a couple leagues last week before the big week. The previous, and I was actually able to go get him previous to this week in a couple leagues. So if you're in a shorter 10 or 12 team redraft league, especially if there's not a big tight end premium, there's a chance people are only carrying one tight end. If that's the case, he could be out there. If he still is, got to go get him right now. As he's becoming Justin Fields' favorite target, and he's been great. Like I said, I picked him up. Was pretty pumped about him. Got him in a few leagues where I had some injuries, and there's gonna be people out there searching for tight ends with Ertz going out, Goddard going down. It was already a thin tight end crew coming in, and it's getting thinner by the day. You're going to see a whole lot of teams starting to Mo Alley Cox by the end of the year. There's just no one left.
Mo Alley Cox. Yeah, Trey McBride is a big pickup this week. I like Trey McBride coming out. It doesn't seem like he's ready yet, though. I wouldn't rush to the waiver wire to pick up Trey McBride. Of course, he's going to be on the field a lot, but
The
I don't
question with him
know.
is, yeah, I'm on with you on that. I like Trey McBride. I took him in a ton of spots in Dynasty League. Um, in a redraft league, if you don't have to have him, I probably don't go get him. If you don't have him in a Dynasty League, or you have somebody who's kind of been really on top of McBride, but maybe you drafted him right in front of him, now might be the time if you're not sold on him, because obviously you haven't seen a lot out of him. Maybe it's the time to trade. I got a couple guys in my leagues that started texting me about McBride today. They're like, ooh, is this where McBride blows up? And I'm like, if you think so and you can sell him for the right price, maybe you do it. My worry about him is I think he'll play, but I just don't know how many targets he's going to get. The Cardinals' offense has been a little bit of a mess here lately. Connor's back. I think, with the classic every year, Kyle Murray getting hurt. And, if he can't run, it just changes everything for them. And then they start going to Connor again. So it's going to be interesting. I just don't know if he sees a ton of targets, especially if Hollywood Brown, like they're talking about, is maybe a week or two away from coming back. Then I think it's trouble.
That's good news for my fishball team, Hollywood Brown coming back. But other than that, in redraft, McBride's definitely a sell. In Dynasty, he is. I think he's a really good buy in Dynasty. He hasn't done
Yeah.
much yet, and
Mhm.
I would wait
If you
for him
can
to.
get him,
I'd wait for him to have a bad week this week. Doesn't produce much, and then when he's on the field and people see that he's not doing anything, do everything you can to buy him because he is the future at tight end. He's a very good tight end in college, and to come out now and have this opportunity and fall on his feet for the first couple weeks like a baby deer on ice, that's I'm all over that. I would buy McBride anywhere I possibly could for. You had to pay an early third round rookie pick last year in the draft to get him. I'd go as far as spending a late second because I think he's the future at tight end for that team. And if he could be, and he is a Zach Ertz replacement. I just don't know do you think he could be he could be as good as Zach Ertz going forward if he gets the opportunity in a year or so?
yeah, that's the question. He had great tape at Colorado State. Their team was terrible. Terrible when he was there, but he was their whole team. And I know people bashed on him because I think he maybe only had one touchdown his senior year, but he had a million catches, a million yards. Their just team wasn't very good. So I think he's probably a little behind just playing for such a bad team in college with not great coaching. But I definitely think the guy's got talent. He's got a good size. And John, I feel like I say this every week, but these rookie tight ends, you got to give them a little bit of time.
Yeah.
It's very rare these guys come in and produce at a high level early in their career. Almost all these guys take at least till year 3 before they really kind of start putting it together. If you look back in the days, Waller, Ertz, all those guys, none of those guys came right out of the gate and started hitting. Goddard took a couple years behind Ertz before he started really get good. Komet is finally, what was it, year 3, so finally starting to hit his stride a little bit. So I think you got to be ready on those guys. Everybody saw the Kyle Pitts breakout last year, and now they think everyone's going to do that. I just don't think it's realistic. Pat Fairmouth, very good Steelers rookie year. Everyone loved him, raved about it. If you went back and look at fantasy stats, it wasn't like he had a monster fantasy year, but you saw the talent and you saw what he could do in ability. So I think you're seeing the same thing with like a K-Dot and Dolchich this year. You're seeing guys that have ability that you think down the line, is there a chance they're going to be a big fantasy producer? There's definitely a chance. They're not giving you tons of production right now, but the tight end landscape is so weak right now that those guys doing anything is helping your cause.
Saints tight end. Are you going after Jawan Johnson or are you going to try and get Troutman?
I have a couple leagues where I'm a little shy on tight end, and there's not much out there. I put in a couple waiver wires for Jawan Johnson. Here's the thing: is if Andy Dalton stays in there at QB, which right now they're sticking with him, I can't believe they are, but
Right.
he seems to like Jawan Johnson. So at some point, these quarterbacks tell us who they like, and we've got to start believing them. If you got Terry McLaurin, you got to play Terry McLaurin every week. Terrell Heineke is like, I love Terry McLaurin. I'm going to throw him the football all the time. His target share is like double with Heineke what it is with Wentz. So these quarterbacks sometimes are trying to tell us. Juwan Johnson's getting the looks. Who else are you going to throw to? for the Saints, I mean, they're all banged up at wide receiver. Olave is good. I like him. And they dump off to Kamara. So it's like, I mean, he's really their 2 or 3 right now. So if you need a guy to fill in, I've got a couple redrafts where he was out there, and I've got either an injury, like I have a league where Ertz got hurt. So I'm picking up Jawan Johnson to replace Ertz. For me, I'm giving him a shot before I take McBride in a redraft. I just think he's put up some points and stuff this year. I just think if I gotta have some points production out of my tight end, I give him a shot.
Yeah, that's definitely a good move. Huge, huge. Anybody else I missed on this? Like, I know Foster Moreau is like a guy that everybody's going after just because of Darren Waller's situation, but I just don't trust Foster Moreau. He's burned me so many times in the past, you know.
It's a classic example of Waller when he produces is so good that people just think, hey, Moreau, you just put him in there, he's going to put up Waller numbers. And I just don't think that's realistic. Can he get some looks? Can he get some touches? Yeah, but he's not going to put up Waller numbers, and I think that's the issue for a lot of people. Is I think they think it's just going to be a replacement, and that's just not happening. I did go out and get a couple shares of Moreau this last week, mostly in tight end premium leagues where it was like 1.5 or 1.75, where I could play him as my second or third tight end, where I'm like getting a little thin at wide receiver, where I'm like really playing some third and fourth wide receivers that are not getting a little looks. So that's a spot that's kind of sneaky. People need to be looking out for. If you're in some tight end premium leagues where you can start more than one, you can start 2, 3 tight ends, maybe even 4, and you're looking at your bench going, man, I do not got a lot of wide receivers that I can play here with all these buys and injuries. Because of the premium, you don't need as good of a game out of those guys to score points. It might be worth throwing in 2, 3, 4 of those guys and starting them. And I've done that with a couple of leagues where I was super young at tight end, don't got a lot going there, but I get a pretty good premium, and I'm starting, Dolchich and Ott every week. And sometimes I'm playing those guys over like a Paris Campbell because I'm like, the premium's just enough that if they have a solid game or even pretty good game, they're going to score me a pretty good amount of points.
Yeah. All right. Let's switch gears over here to get to injuries. Cooper Kupp, ankle sprain, needs some. He had surgery. Like he's gonna need surgery now. A little bit of surgery on his ankle. He's on. That's. I mean, people who are depending on Cooper Kupp. What do you do now? Like, who do you shift to? Do you go to Ben Skowronek? Do you go to, Allen Robinson? Who are you looking for right now in on the Rams if you needed a wide receiver and you were? I mean, nobody's going to replace Cooper Kupp's production, so you're SOL on that one.
Yeah, here's the issue when it comes to the Rams, and I can't believe I'm saying this.
They suck.
Super Bowl. They're terrible. They're
Right.
terrible, and it's like you usually in these situations you got a team that's got a pretty good offense, so you're like, hey, if this guy goes out, somebody else has got to get that production. Somebody else is going to step up and get some of those catches, receptions, rushing yards. At this point, I don't trust anybody on this Rams team, especially with Wolford at QB over Stafford. And even when Stafford was playing, I was trying to not play anyone but Kupp if I had to. It's just ugly. They cannot move the ball. They are one of the lowest scoring teams in the NFL right now. I just don't even see. And you think, okay, Allen Robinson's going to start playing really well now that Kupp's gone. He's going to get all the targets. I don't trust it. I don't trust it at all. And if you had Cooper Kupp, my guess is he was one of your top guys, especially in a redraft. You're probably in trouble. Like I only had him in one league, and I spent a load in my big money dynasty league to get him because I was right on the verge of a title last year. I led the league in scoring, lost in the semifinals, and I was like, I just need that guy to put me over the top. And the guy that had Kupp, his team was just getting really old and started tanking. So I went and made a big trade with him. I think I gave him 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and Hollywood Brown for him. And now I'm like, oh, that was a guy I was counting on to carry me in this league. And now I'm having to replace him with like a Tyler Boyd or Devin Duvernay, which is just like, oh my God, the drop off from that is huge. Because even when the Rams were bad, Kupp was still scoring you points. I picked up Tyler Higbee in one league that was a redraft league that I needed a tight end, just get some points with bye weeks and injuries, because he's been pretty good for them lately, even though I'm not a big Higbee guy. But I've got Darrell Henderson staring me in the face in a million leagues, and I'm like, I don't even know if I can start him. And he should be getting a million carries with them not being able to throw the football. But it's like I just don't know what the Rams are doing on offense. It seems like everything that McVay did that worked the last couple of years is completely not working now. And I just don't know what to. I don't want to play a Rams player if I don't have to at all.
I got so lucky selling Darrell Henderson for a second round pick. It's going to be an early second round pick early in the season. So right when he had his first big game and Akers wasn't producing, I'm like, yes. And some running back needy teams jumped at the opportunity, and I was there for it. I got lucky that I could sell him. I should have done that with Deion.
Deion
What's his name?
Jackson.
Deion Jackson, a couple other
Deion
guys.
Jackson. Yep.
I missed the opportunity to do that. So it is what it is. Yeah, I guess the only good news, the only silver lining on this Cooper Cup situation right now is that hopefully you have a big lead in your division or you're in your points, stuff like that. So you can, it's going to be week 11, 12, 13, 14. And if he comes off the IR in week, let's say 15, you got to buy the first round of your playoffs, and get him a week to go. If he can come back for like round 2 of your playoffs, if you have a bye, that's the only silver lining I could see about the Cooper Cup injury.
Yeah, you got to hope that he in this time gets right, and because Cup's out, they know they're in trouble. I mean, they're
Right.
3-6 right now. They sit Stafford for a little bit longer, let him get healthy, and you got to hope maybe those two guys come back down the stretch and give you a little bit of something. I mean, I'm getting crushed in some leagues. Stafford was supposed to be my main dog, and if it wasn't for Justin Fields and a couple other guys in Tua coming out of nowhere, I'd be in real trouble in a few leagues where I just was going to be counting on Stafford, and he's just done nothing for me.
Yep. That's it is what it is. Jerry Judy, Denver Broncos. And man, there was a big scare here because the Judy people love Jerry Judy, and when he came out the field holding the back of his leg, instantaneously everybody thought it was a Achilles situation, and it's reported to be now just a hamstring or a strain, ankle strain or whatever. So that's hopefully it's only a couple week injury for the Judy people, the Judy truthers. Lombardi Lenny hip pointer. It's they got to buy this week, so that works out good for them. Rest him up, come back. Hopefully, he doesn't lose too much ground in his stranglehold of what it was anyway of the position. So, Zach Ertz, we talked about him, season-ending injury, knee injury. So it is what it is. We talked about already Ed and Trey McBride, PJ Walker, Juju. Juju had that bad situation where he got knocked out and was doing that that crazy
Yeah.
shit. So
Yeah,
I
it's
hate
just
to see that.
your arms like lock up because your brain just like stops for that second. That's always scary when that happens. I'm a huge Juju guy. I love Juju. I got him on a ton of teams. I've loved him since he was with the Steelers. That's a huge injury. I mean, I've had leagues where I'm like, he is one of my top 3 wide receivers. He's been giving me points. Uh, with the way they've been handling concussions this year, I would be shocked if he plays this week. I think they sit him out at least a week, maybe even 2, just to be safe. If you are sitting on that MVS or Hardman on your bench, now maybe is the time you plug those guys in and you say, hey, give them a shot with no Juju. You still got Kelsey, obviously, is going to be the main guy, but you never know with Mahomes. He's been throwing the ball all over the place lately, and he's been peppering everybody. So if you're going to take a shot in the dark to see who can maybe score a touchdown for you, might as well be one of the Chiefs wide receivers the way Mahomes is playing. So if you got one of those guys, I have a couple leagues where I have those guys on my bench. I have Juju. I'm probably slotting one of those guys in for Juju this week, and hoping something good happens.
Yeah. I'm getting this information from Adam Hutchinson, our guest from last week, on here from 4 for 4, and he has the whole play about. They were showing the play on the sidelines about Dallas Goddard getting hurt, and they didn't call the face mask on Goddard, and they were like literally pulling him to the ground, and when he got hurt, it's like holy cow, like it's amazing how that wasn't called for a face mask penalty, but he got hurt in the play anyway, and they kept showing it over and over on TV, blatantly like making the refs like look bad that they didn't see this right in the middle of the field, open wide display of a penalty. So it's just funny, but he'll be out for a while too. So that's
Yeah,
something.
I think they're saying at least 3 or 4 weeks maybe for him as well.
At least, yeah. That's so. Grant Calcaterra, is that somebody you're looking up, or are we just going to kind of nobody's going to get the ball? This might be a Kenny Gainwell situation who might benefit the most from this middle of the field. That's who I'm thinking anyway.
I think him. I also think they added. I mean, they're another team where you get some guys. Zach Pascal's had some pretty good games. here and there. Quez Watkins had a big game. Of course, no AJ Brown at all, and then Quez Watkins gets all the big plays. So their team, they've come out with that four wide. They don't mind spreading it out because this opens up the room for Hurts to run. So I definitely think I'm not jumping in immediately to get the Eagles backup tight end unless I'm in like a start two or like big time 175 2 tight end premium where I'm looking at going, hey, am I starting him or some four string wide receiver? I'll take a shot with him because the premium's high enough. Maybe he catches two passes and gets a TD and wins me a week. But yeah, Goddard, he wasn't getting a lot of target share, but he was making stuff happen when he got the ball. So that's why he was still, I think, pretty valuable to play. But that Eagles offense, while they're really good and Hurts has been really good, figuring out who's going to be the guy every week has been really tough. I mean, you'll see AJ Brown go off. Then the next week is Devontae Smith. Then you'll get a Quez Watkins. Then you'll get a gigantic, Miles Sanders game. So it's good for them in real life that it's hard to concentrate on one guy. But for fantasy purposes, it's been hard to get consistency out of anyone other than Hurts all year.
Yes, and he wasn't. He didn't light up the scoreboard this week either. So it is what it is. So let's real fast. We're going to go some current events, player news. I'm going to kind of ask you a couple questions about each one of these teams, and then just real quick, just kind of give me what you think and add on anything. Is Fields the quarterback one now in fantasy? That he's got Cole Kmet and his running ability. Can he keep this up all season long, running for 100 yards, 150 yards? He's on pace to run for like 300 rushes. It's insane. Is this going to be what this was week one? We were talking about Jalen Hurts, and now we're talking about Justin Fields. I was kind of skeptical about Justin Fields because of the Ohio State kind of genre of quarterbacks coming out of there, and he hasn't really burned up the league with his. He's throwing touchdowns, but they're not crazy touchdowns. They're wide open guys. A couple good plays by a couple, acrobatic plays, but for the most part, all of his almost all of his fantasy production has come from his legs. So, is this sustainable?
Yeah, it's starting to remind me a lot of that Lamar Jackson season where he came in and was just running the ball everywhere, and then was completing some deep passes for some easy long touchdowns because everybody was stacking the box, and he was able to get, didn't complete that many passes, but a lot of them were deep for touchdowns. This is another situation. You got to figure out where you're at on Fields. This was the same way it kind of happened last year with Hurts. People were like, hey, he's going to get you fantasy production as a runner, but does he hold on the job long term? That was the big question coming up. Same thing with Fields coming in. Same thing. Now he's running the ball. Can he keep it up? Does this mean he's going to get injuries? If you got a huge Bears fan, like a lot of my friends are, if I got Fields, they're just chomping at the bit to get Fields for me. And so if you can get them to overpay, maybe now's the time to get out on that, apex of that value. I have a hard time imagining his value stays as high as it is right now. He's just so hot in the fantasy world. If you believe in him, great. I don't think this is a have to sell, have to buy situation. I think you really got to go with your gut. Do you think this is what Justin Fields is going to be? Or do you think, hey, he's having a good run here against some bad defenses? I think we're going to get a decent amount of this his career, but 150 yards rushing a game he's just not going to be able to keep that up. And is it a Lamar situation where, yeah, he has one great season, but then he's banged up the whole next year. Then he comes back, has a decent year, then he gets banged up the next year. And that's what you got to worry about with him. So, I'm loving to see what I'm seeing out of Justin Fields. I've got him in a couple leagues that he is just absolutely saving me in some redraft leagues where I took him as my third QB in Superflex, and he is just smoking it right now for me. He's brought me from the middle of the pack to the top, so I love that. I've only got him a couple spots in Dynasty, and if I moved him right now, in all honesty, I'd have to move him for a lot. I'm a lot. I just don't know that somebody could pay enough for him right now. But again, that's Dynasty values. You go 6 weeks ago, people are already like, would you sell him for one first? Would you take a first and a second for him? I've seen this discussion all over the place. People are like, are you out on Fields? If you're out on him, is it even worth it what you're going to get back for him? So it's like, do you just sit on him anyway just because there's no way to get out of him for a decent value? So when we've seen this with people, and that's where you got to look for your league mates who either are now all in on him or were already on the fence of trying to get rid of him, and they're not a believer, and maybe you get them for a decent price. I think it all just comes down to your league, and kind of who you're dealing with that owns them.
Next year is going to be a huge year for the Bears when they import all the free agent money and all them draft picks, and Fields goes out there and he can't possibly produce with all that brand new import of riches. They're going to have to make a move at the following year. Either yes, he does it, or no, he doesn't, and you can't just run. If you can't throw the ball and run, they have to kind of look and see what they got and make a decision about moving forward in the future, or see what they do. But next year, I think he's safe. But after
Mhm.
that, there's no guarantees. He's got to really produce next year. I'm
Yeah,
glad he's getting.
I
I'm
was gonna
glad he's
say
getting all this time.
as I say, it feels like Hurts. It feels a ton like Hurts last year. Hey, he had some ups and downs. He had some great running games, looked good for a while, and they came into this year going, "Hey, Hurts is our guy, but you got to prove it this year." I think you're going to see the same thing with Fields. Like if they come out and they start 0-6 next year, I think you're going to see it's going to be in some trouble unless he's putting up a million points and the defense just can't stop anybody. But I think you're right. I think it's a make or break next year for Fields. They want to see what he's got, and he's got to show that he can win some games. I like what he's showing. I think everybody thought this is what he had in him, but can he sustain it? Is the question. Because I mean, I've watched a lot of Bear games. I know you watch all the Bears games. He looks like a completely different quarterback from like 6 weeks ago. I
Yeah.
mean, completely different player. And we've seen that for the good side, and we've seen it for the bad side, where players look great, and all of a sudden they turn around and they have a bad game, and then they just can't get off the snide. So it's just going to be interesting to see what happens with him the rest of the way.
The Bills, is Josh Allen developing or reverting back to his bad habits?
Yeah, tough thing with him is you don't know with how much of the elbow injury is making him do some things. And then again, we always talk about it, but once it starts getting cold this time of year, offenses slow down a little bit. Guys that have little nicks and bangs and injuries, those things all of a sudden tighten up a lot easier. They start bothering them a lot more during a game than it would be when it's warm outside. I still think Josh Allen, is a top guy. You got to think he's super flex leagues, two QBs, either your first, second, third QB off the board. But I think the problem is we're so recency biased these days. It's you get a couple up games, couple down games. You have a monster game, everybody loves you. You have an okay game, people are like, oh, what happened to him? And I don't think anything's wrong with Josh Allen. I think the Vikings are actually a pretty good team. And I just think he didn't play that well, and he had a bum elbow. What that means for the rest of the year, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm definitely not moving Josh Allen at all in any of my leagues for anything unless I get somebody I really love in return. I think the last trade I made for Josh Allen, I had Josh Allen, I traded him in a keeper league where I got Mahomes and McLaren for Josh Allen and Noah Fant.
Yeah.
And I felt like that was a pretty even throw, and I needed another wide receiver because I had a couple of injuries last year, and I felt like the McLaren was enough of a bump up from Fant to make Mahomes and Allen worth the swap. And then, of course, I lost in the playoffs where Allen outscored Mahomes by 10 points and I lost by 10. So that's what I get. But that's what happens. But again, I think, that's the kind of trade I would make if I was looking to make a move for a Josh Allen. But I mean, I wouldn't be giving him up for much less than that.
I traded for Josh Allen before the beginning of this season. I traded away Matt Stafford, Kyle Pitts, and Rondell Moore and got Josh Allen. So I thought it was a lot to give up at the time, but I'm glad I made that trade, and I'd make that trade 10 out of 10 times again.
Oh
So
yeah, I mean, just looking back at it now in hindsight, that's a steal of a trade for you. I mean,
yeah,
really, your value was Pitts. How high would Pitts be valued up there? But anytime you can get an absolute stud that's real young like that, I like that trade for you for sure.
thank you. I like talking about trades I won. I'm not going to talk about the bad trades. Broncos, was Russell Wilson just done? I mean, I know we're talking about recency bias, but man, he looks bad.
I can't figure it out if he just is uncomfortable in Denver, and he just has no connection with his teammates. I mean, you always hear about him being a real weird guy, and he has a hard time like getting along with teammates and things.
Right.
I don't know. It's very perplexing how bad he's been this year, and it's some of the throws he's making, and it's like they're calling an audible and he's throwing it nowhere near the wide receiver. And you're like, even if you didn't call that, like, how are you that far off? That team is blowing my mind how they cannot figure out how to do anything on offense. Again, they're one of those. I think I saw a stat the other day. Someone said that if the Broncos had scored 18 points in regulation in every one of their games this year, they'd be something like 6-3 or 7-2.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy to think about that they've been in that many close, low scoring games that they could just put not even 3 touchdowns. They would have a winning record instead they're sitting at 3-6. I don't know. If I have Russ, I'm probably not selling him because there's no way I'm going to get anything in return for what I probably had to do to get him or acquire him.
Right.
I'm sitting going, hopefully, hey, they signed him to a monster contract. He ain't going anywhere. So if I have him, I'm holding him. I'm gonna bench him if he's on my team right now. If I have anyone else to play, I'm playing him. But I'm holding him and hoping that off season they can figure some things out, whatever they do with the coaches, and maybe he can come back and have a bounce back year. But it's been rough. If you were counting on Russ this year, you are not feeling good.
No, the only thing that you can think of is he usually starts out bad or finishes bad when he starts out good, or he has that like polarizing seasons all the time. Maybe it's just taking a while to figure it out, but I don't know how much is going on with his psyche, being like booed all the time and everything he does. I mean, he's one of those guys, like you said, he's kind of weird, but he's one of those guys. I think he played with Legion of Boom and all, the great defense and good receivers, and he never the guy kind of had good running backs, decent offensive line. Well, the offensive line was not great in Seattle, but I mean, he had a lot to work with before and a great defense in front of him. It's almost like if as long as he didn't make mistakes, he'd rolled out a little bit, throw these dump off passes and things with
Mm.
people would make things happen, or Marshawn would just kind of save the day. I don't know. Maybe Pete Carroll was the smart one here, getting rid of him. So
Yeah, I think the other thing is there was a lot of those teams weren't really counting on him to win them games. He
right,
just needed to play well enough, stick in it, and then if he made some plays down the stretch, put a couple big plays together at the end of the game so you can pull it out for him. And I think when you're a guy who's underpaid most of your career, you're beloved as the young upstart third rounder, and everybody loves you, you get a lot more leeway and stuff. Now, when you're I'm getting paid an extraordinary amount of money. I just got traded for 1 million draft picks, and I'm in this new town, and I'm supposed to be the savior. And now it's not working out that way. I mean, that's got to. I don't care who you are. That's got to get in your head. And
right,
Russ seems like a fairly sensitive dude when it comes to some things. So, I mean, I could see that really messing with him right now, and the frustration just building and building and building. Maybe he does have that last 6 weeks of the season where he blows up and puts up those MVP numbers like you said he's done in the past. But man, that seems so far away right now for this team and for him. It's crazy.
right. Who will be the number? Okay, we're talking about the Browns now. Who's going to be the number two receiver when Njoku and Watson are back? In Cleveland, like you look at their roster here, they got obviously Amari Cooper's number one. Is DPJ going to be keeping it up? When is David Bell going to kind of sprout out to be what we thought he was going to be? I have David Bell everywhere, and I'm sitting there looking at my chops, waiting for him to have that breakout week. Or is he going to be the number two guy here? Is this going to be David Njoku when he's finally healthy, come back and be the middle of the field kind of guy? Or are they going to run the ball and play defense and throw to Cooper the whole time? Who's going to be the second guy, the next guy to step up on this team?
I think it's really going to be interesting to see what happens with Watson. You just don't quite know yet. He's obviously a lot different quarterback than Jacoby Brissett is. I like Jacoby Brissett. I think he's actually done a fairly decent job for the Browns for what they've, situation they put him in. I just don't know. I mean, are the Browns going to come out and be like, "Hey, we're going to go old school Texans when they had Watson and they let him throw damn near every play, or are they going to be like, no, we're the pound and ground team. We're going to run the ball with Chubb and Hunt, and Watson, we're going to make you make plays when you can. I just don't know what this team's going to do. It seems to totally change your mindset of what you've done all year. The last couple of weeks that you put in a new QB just seems a little crazy to me. It seems difficult to do, but maybe it's not as bad as I think it is. But man, if I got Watson in a dynasty league, which I don't have any of them because I was just out after all this mess the last couple of years, um, if you got him, you're holding him. You're probably waiting on him, see how he plays. It goes in there. Um, Maybe you have somebody. this is probably the worst time to buy him because he's just getting ready to come back. So the Siteman's coming back. So you're probably going to have to pay too much to get him unless you have somebody who's just absolutely can't stand him and he's on their roster. But man, I don't know if I trust anyone outside of Cooper on that team. You'd think maybe a David Bell would hit with a Watson, but and maybe they tried deeper down, more deep balls with Peoples Jones because Watson's a little more deep ball thrower than Jacoby Brissett is. So I don't trust those guys again. If I don't have to play anybody, I'm playing Cooper and then maybe Njoku, and that's about it other than the running backs.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great situation to come back to where he just, hey, there's the defense. I got two great running backs behind me. Let's not turn the ball over. Let's just play ball control, the offense, and call it a day. So it's great for him. He's going to be able to get his feet wet in a real good situation. So let's see, Buccaneers. Is Lombardi Lenny the backup now to Rashad White, or is this going to be back to Lombardi Lenny? I mean, Tom Brady likes his guys. You know, that's he's not a big change around things. He likes his system, his way of doing things, and he trusts Leonard Fournette. What do you think is going to happen here?
I think they're going to stick with Fournette as long as he's healthy. I think White's going to cut into a little bit of his play here and there. If he has a big series playing well, I think he'd do something. I just can't see them totally abandoning on a season that's gone. Everything's going against them, and they're 5-5 in a terrible division with a chance to win. And if you're the Bucks, you got to be thinking, guys, all we got to do is make the playoffs. We know how to win in the playoffs. That experienced team, we just got to get there. And so I think they lean on the veterans. Rashad White, if you can go get him. But I've never been a huge White guy. Had a really good game last week, but I think this stays Lenny's team. I think he gets the ball. I just think you might see a couple more carries or touches go White's way down the stretch.
I think we kind of talked about this earlier a little bit, but with the Trey McBride, we're talking about the Cardinals now. With the Trey McBride situation unfolding now, at tight end, do you go after Trey McBride or Greg Dulcich in redraft? And we'll revert to dynasty after that. But in redraft right now, you have to go Dulcich, right? I mean, it's
I,
kind of a no-brainer.
I think so. I think you go Dolchich and redraft. I just think he has a higher upside. Um, Russ already has a little bit of a connection with him. He's played pretty well. He's made some big plays. So he's not just one of those 5 yard downfield tight ends where they dump it off to him. They like to go deep down the seam to him. I've got Dolchich. I'm playing him in most places that I have him. Because again, outside of the top two guys, it's a toss up at tight end right now. So I'm playing him. McBride, like I said, if you can acquire him in Dynasty, I like it. If I have room on my roster and I can put McBride as a backup and look at it a couple weeks, pick him up now, I'd do it. But the question is whether you have that space on a redraft roster. And obviously, in a dynasty, I don't know why he wouldn't be rostered in every dynasty league.
Right.
So he's going to be on a dynasty roster. But again, this might be a buy low situation. If you got somebody who didn't really believe in him and is now like, oh, this is my chance to sell him because they're afraid he's going to suck, then maybe you can get him for a decent price and you can get a chance to see if he goes out there and hits.
Next year, the Chiefs just going to draft a running back and get rid of this whole running back rotation situation going on right now with undrafted guy Pacheco as the running back, and they have to get a stud running back, right?
Here's what I'm thinking. This I was thinking about this today, and it popped in my head, and it was probably a bad idea because now I'm going to think about it and want it to happen. But I could see them going and getting Sean Tucker from Syracuse. So he's had a little bit of a down year this year because their line hasn't been great. He was good when Schrader was healthy, but Schrader's been banged up, which hurts him running the ball. But he reminds me of a Jamal Charles type RB, not quite as fast as Jamal Charles, but I just think he can run that RPO. He catches the ball out of the backfield. He can do that zone blocking scheme. I think if he's a guy that they could get late second, early third, somewhere in that range, I think the dynasty community would lose their mind.
Yeah.
I think they would just be all over Sean Tucker. He'd be a top maybe 5 or 6 rookie draft selection because he's a guy who I think could easily win that backfield And I just think he's a guy that's going to be totally system dependent. I think if he ends up on the right team, he could end up being a stud in the NFL. If he ends up on the wrong type of team, he could just be a flame out. I think it can go either way with him, and I like him personally. I think he's a good player, but I think he's really going to be system dependent. But I think if you could add a guy like that to the Chiefs, wow, man, I just think that just opens the door big time for them, and it gives them another dimension. Because again, these guys are okay, but no one's really worried about their running game at the moment with all these guys going around. It's just I wasn't a CAH guy when he came out. I just didn't see it. And he hasn't really, he's had moments. He's had times he's looked good this year, but I feel like every one of their guys have had times they've looked good and looked bad. So that's just a tough spot. But I think everybody's going to be going in the offseason, fantasy football wise, wanting the Chiefs to get a good RB in the second or third round. Tucker's who jumped to my mind that I thought would fit that system really well.
I wanted Jerome Ford to go to the Chiefs this year. That was kind of my, it just didn't. And he goes to, I'm like, Browns, what the hell are
He
you
gets
doing? You don't
buried.
need him.
Gets buried. Gets buried on
Yeah.
the one team that doesn't need him. But I think that's the same way. I mean, here's a funny thing. We talk about this. I think you take a Tristan Ebner and you put Tristan Ebner on the Chiefs. I think Tristan Ebner's really good on the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I mean, again, he's just a guy that's kind of buried behind other really pretty good running backs. But if that guy was your main guy, and you had the guys that the Chiefs have, I would be looking at Tristan Ebner over all those guys.
Yeah. I mean, if the Bears are looking for draft picks, the Chiefs could send some kind of 6th, 7th pick and say, "Hey, we'll give you Tristan Ebner for it," because the guys like that, that system is perfect for them.
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly.
yeah, it's frustrating. I'll let you talk about your Colts for a minute, and this Saturday, Sunday. Is he changing the Colts? Is he changing the philosophy for the whole coaching system in the NFL, or we just kind of got lucky because the Raiders suck so bad?
Well, I think it was a combination that I really lucked out that they got the Raiders this week. I think that was a huge thing for them. As I saw a bunch of memes about, hey, is everybody just going to hire a guy off the bench if they get to play against the Raiders every week? Then like be awesome. I saw a bunch of Coach Taylor memes from Friday Night Lights, and I was dying laughing. I was like, that's great. One of my favorite shows. But yeah, I tell you what, it might be only one game, but they looked like a totally different team. They looked like a totally different team, which is insane. They looked like they had confidence. It looked like they had a game plan. They missed
Jonathan Taylor did like the Undertaker thing where he sat up and came back alive again.
I mean, Jonathan Taylor looked like old school Jonathan Taylor, and I know a lot of people are like, "Well, a lot of that was one big 66-yard run." I'm like, "But that's why you have Jonathan Taylor,
right?
So he can make a big 66-yard touchdown run for you. That's why you have him." They just looked a lot. I mean, they looked competent. I know the Raiders have been bad, but the Colts actually looked like they had a game plan. They were competent. And again, that division and the bottom of the AFC it's a mess down there. If Saturday can figure this out, there's a chance this team makes the playoffs, which it looked really ugly a couple weeks ago. But for your fantasy shares, you gotta love it. I mean, Pittman got some catches. Paris Campbell got in the mix. Jonathan Taylor back in the mix. So I mean, I saw some people just all out on Matt Ryan. So I went and jumped on a bunch of Matt Ryan, picking him up in some leagues, some super flex leagues and stuff that were redraft. I don't know if people are really drafting in Dynasty. You don't really draft a guy like that in Dynasty. But in redraft, super flex league, I saw a lot of people jump out on Matt Ryan. I jumped right back in and picked him up because I'm like, hey, if he can play like he did, if he can avoid the turnovers, the guy actually, stats wise, yards wise, touchdowns wise, has been pretty good this year. He's just had a million turnovers and at the worst time. So the Colts, you got to like the Matt Ryan for your Pittman shares. You got to like the Matt Ryan for your Paris Campbell shares, your Alec Pierce shares, because it looks like they got an offense again. In the last 2 weeks, they were dead in the water. You couldn't play any of those guys.
If you got JT, and let's say now that your roster changed a little bit, do you take Zach Moss or Deion Jackson as your dynasty stash right now for backup as your handcuff? Because I mean, Zach Moss is such more of a, how do you call it, like his draft position, his draft capital, not that it matters, it's not the team that drafted him, but he was PFF's #1 running back coming out of his class. So I don't know if you just stay with an undrafted free agent rookie, because I think Zach Moss is a better all around player than Deion Jackson, but Deion Jackson's pretty good. So I don't know what your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think the more weeks that Zach Moss is there on the Colts, I think the better chance he's going to get some more playing time, and they're going to mix him in. I think with the new staff, just making the trade, everything that happened, I think there was just not much chance he was going to get mixed in at all. I still get just to jump on with that Moss trade. I still can't understand what the Bills are doing with Neon Hines. They went out and made a trade for Neon Hines, and they have like basically not played him. I mean, he literally has not played, and I'm like, Colts, why didn't you keep him for this? If you were just going to do this, because he was good on the Colts. They knew how to use him. I mean, he's doing nothing for the Bills. It's crazy. I mean, I was playing him with some flex spots for the Colts, and he's basically been unplayable since he's been on the Bills. So, but yeah, I'd stash Moss. If you got Moss, I like it. And probably a lot of people have forgot about him, where he's been sitting on the waiver wire anyway, even in dynasty leagues. People had kind of given up on him. So he's definitely a guy that's probably still maybe hiding out there. People didn't jump on him right when the trade happened. He's probably still sitting out there.
I just traded. I got Zach Moss, and we'll talk about trades a little bit later. I'll bring that up later. But I think I got a steal for Zach Moss for what I traded him for. So, but I'm going after James Cook right now because I think people are starstruck over Naheem Hines in the Bills system. I'm going after James Cook because I think he just needs a little time to develop. He's not really catching on or whatever, but he knows the system. I think he's a pretty good running back. A lot of people do not like James Cook. I liked him a lot. And I didn't love him, but I liked him a lot. And I think that, if he could definitely be a really good back in this offense also if he kind of catches on. I'm not really sure why he's not up to speed yet, but somebody right now is kind of buried, and people are kind of, oh, geez, they brought in Hines. That's it. If they're going to give up on James Cook, I would go try buy cheap on James Cook if you get a chance.
Yeah, if you were a guy that liked him coming out of the draft, I think now's the time to jump on him. He hasn't done much in a couple weeks. You know how people sour on guys quick. You know they made the Neon Hines trade, which makes you, if you're got a Cook guy, you're nervous because you're like, oh man, did they really not like Cook? Like they just went and got a guy that's exactly like him. So I mean, I totally can see you pulling the trigger. If you were a James Cook guy coming out, this is where I start going around and asking everybody that has him
Right.
what they'll take for him because there's a chance somebody took him late first, maybe early second, and they might be willing to trade him for a second somewhere in there. If somebody's really down on him, maybe a late second or early third. I mean, you'd have to have somebody who's really out on him for that, depending on what they paid for him. But yeah, if they all of a sudden think he's a third string running back for that Bills team, now's the time to jump on him.
Yeah, especially if the guy did real bad in the draft, had a bad team, draft didn't work out so well, wants to start from scratch. That's yeah. I don't think I'd pay a second, but I would definitely pay a mid third for James Cook for sure.
Yeah, like I
It's
said, if you were all over him, you loved him, you would have taken him in the late first if you had a spot there, but you couldn't get him there, and you're saying, hey, I'll give a late second for him, or mid to late second or early third. If you could get him for that, I think that's a fair trade.
I didn't see James Cook going in a late first in any draft. I
He went if you looked at stats online from the beginning of the draft, if you drafted right after the NFL draft, he was going like kind of early second, mid second to late second, depending on the league format.
mhm.
The later in the summer you got, the closer you got to August and you drafted rookie drafts, he was creeping all the way in that late first. I even saw him go as high as 1.5 in a league. So
What?
he was one of those guys that he was a slow riser throughout the summer. He was definitely, people are kind of consider him that early second, mid second, right after the draft. But he got a little bit of hype train behind him as the summer went on, and I saw him start like teams that really needed RBs. He started jumping into that that first round. If a team was RB dependent, he would become the third RB off the board. So I mean, I was totally out on him at that point because I'm like, I'll take James Cook if he falls to me mid to late second, but I'm not spending like my 110 or my 2.2 on him. But yeah, that he got as high as that at the end of the year. I wish I had those stats sitting right in front of me, but yeah, he skyrocketed the last like month of the draft season.
I'm looking at that now, I'm laughing at you, but he went 110 in one of our leagues. So I guess I'm like I didn't like him. I didn't like him that much at all to pay a first round pick for him. I would have definitely took a
That's what I'm saying. Depending on draft capital, if you took somebody that drafted early in the summer and took them like late second, early third, and they could say, "Hey, I'll get out with the same draft I put into them, and I'll trade them for an early second, late second, early third." I jump on that. I mean, it seems crazy value, but I mean, this is the time to get those rookies that haven't kind of broken out, but you still like for future. What do you people might sell them for what they just got into them. They're not looking for anything more, or they might just take it just a hair less, just because they'd rather get out and get another draft pick. So, like I said, this is just a spot. If you like him a lot, this is a spot to try to go get him.
Yeah, I'm looking real fast in my other league to see where he was drafted at. In this is the first league we drafted in, and I said the 110 was that way, which I couldn't believe, and I forgot because we drafted so late in that one. But
It came with some. I saw it a lot when there was RB needy teams, and they just got a little bit desperate, and they couldn't move a pick to move back to pick him a little later, so they just took him because they were like, I got to have RB no matter what, and they were maybe out on Rashad White, and it was either him or Rashad White, and they're like, I'm taking him. That's where I saw it most of the times. I mean, the most egregious was I saw him like a 1-5 in a league right at the end of the year, but that was like someone's like, oh, he's going to be the starting back. He's going to play all the time on an awesome offense, and they were just all over him. Which I mean, good for them
yeah,
sticking to. But if I liked him that much, I would have just traded back. I'd have been like, hey, somebody's buy the 1-5 for me, and I'll move back to like 112, 2-1, 2-2, and get him there.
oh, 100%, especially because Josh Allen is the main running back on that team. So I don't. He was 206 in the league we drafted first early in the season. So
And I felt like that's about where he was typically going early on. He was like that mid-second rounder, depending on your format. Because if you were like a two tight end premium or a high tight end premium, start two or a high tight end premium, then you kind of saw like the McBride sneaking into that early second round. If you were in like a non-premium tight end league or not start two, then McBride was kind of in that same round with you, like 2-6 to 3-1
mhm.
is kind of where he was going too. So just kind of a little bit dependent on your how many teams in the format.
Yeah. We talked about the Commanders a little bit already. The Cowboys, Dak. Dak is. I had Dak Prescott in the league, and being out half the beginning of the season really kind of hampered my team. But Dak and CD, that connection is just fantastic. It's Schultz, CD Lamb, and Dak, and Tony Pollard on that team. It's pretty powerful offense.
Yeah, they're finally looking like the offense that everybody thought they were going to look like at the beginning of the year. Um, Finally starting Dax, look like he's getting warmed up. CD finally has the breakout game that everybody's been begging for his entire career. And then Pollard's really just fit right in without Zeke the last couple of weeks. He's looked really solid, real quick. Just he's been good. And then if you're a Dalton Schultz guy, they're finally getting Dalton Schultz back involved here the last couple of weeks after he just had disappeared. Cooper Cup, or not, sorry, with Cooper Rush starting QB. But I know he had that kind of knee strain. It looks like he's finally feeling healthy because he was looked like he was really struggling through it there for a couple weeks. But the last couple weeks he's been playable. And you know what? I'm going to need him bad in a few leagues because I had Ertz and Goddard in a bunch of leagues, and now Schultz is going to have to be my guy for sure going forward. So I had a couple trade offers out to get rid of him that people wanted him a little bit when he was in the slide, and I'm kind of glad I didn't get those done because now I need him down the stretch.
Kevin Coleman had a tweet. I think it was a really good one. I believe this was it, unless I'm misremembering. But he had, would you rather in a dynasty superflex? Would you rather have Justin Fields or Dak Prescott right now? It's your turn to pick, they're both on the board. Who would you take?
Oh,
Dynasty superflex.
if a superflex startup is maybe I probably going Fields. If it's a league where I'm already in and I'm a contender, I'm probably taking Dak.
I'm kind of I'm kind of thinking that you're frozen a little bit right now. I'm kind of thinking that I'm going to go Dak just because I'm not sure how the future of Fields uh, this year with in a redraft situation. Yes, I'd probably go Justin Fields, but you broke up a little bit. What were you saying?
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I think I said if I'm a startup and I'm planning on trying to draft pretty young, I probably go Fields. If I'm in a league right now that's already existing and I'm competing or near the top, I might make that trade to go Dak just because I think he might be a little more consistent down the stretch and in the playoffs as far as fantasy perspective. I mean, obviously Fields has put up 1,000,000 points right now, but is he going to do that all week the rest of the year? I don't know. Startup probably Fields, but I say that now because I feel like people think his value's more. Um, but that's a real tough call. I mean, I think you're right about the same value for those guys.
I think Dak's. I'd still take Dak probably. Um,
Like I said, if I'm planning on drafting like a startup and I'm drafting a team that I want to compete right away, I'm taking Dak for sure over Fields. If I think I'm going to start up and I'm going to go real young and I'm going to draft a lot of young guys hoping to kind of build over time, then I'm probably going the Fields route. But yeah, for production wise, right away, consistency, I'm going Dak.
hmm, nice. The Dolphins. I want. I was a Dolphins fan my entire life because of Dan Marino, and I kind of got stuck with this team. And now I'm like, now they're doing good, and I don't like them anymore, and I have to root for them because my kids all like the Dolphins now, and I put myself in a real bad situation. So, I, I mean, man, I just can't with these Dolphins. I want to be a Dolphins. I hate the jerseys now. I hate the change of the look. I don't like Tua. I think if you watch a game, there's literally like 5 passes a game that Tua should have intercepted because he throws it too short or he throws it behind the receiver, and everything's like it's a slant. It's a 5 and in or a 5 and out or something. And he hits these guys and they turn a 5 or 7 yard slant or a post into an 85-yard touchdown. And it's like, what did you do besides throw a fucking 5 yard pass to Tyreek Hill or, Jalen Waddle? It's like, he's so overrated, and it's like when you just don't like somebody and you find all these flaws even though they're not even there, you kind of make flaws
Yeah,
up in your head to not like them. But
absolutely.
I don't know.
Yeah. Hey, I think they call that good coaching, right? You just get it to your playmakers' hands and let them make plays and make your QB look good.
There's no
I
way. I mean, literally, I could have I already brought my grandma in a situation, so I'll bring somebody else in there. I could have my daughter call a play that says, "Yeah, throw it to a fast guy, let him go 5 yards and cut in the middle of the field, right between the middle of the zone, and then he catch it and right in the middle when nobody can hit him for another 5 or 6 yards, and he'll turn something into something." It's like a cheat code for him. It's not fair.
Well, but here's my thing is they do that well. Why are more not teams not doing that? That's the
Uh,
thing I always think. I really feel like a lot of these older coaches are overthinking things and they're just trying to be like the smartest creative play they can ever put together. And it's everything's got to go right and it'll be a great play. And it's going to be like, hey, that guy is way better than the guy across from him guarding him. Let's run a 5 yard slant and let the best player win. Sometimes I think they just need to simplify. It's like these teams are. I understand, calling games is not easy. I call games in high school and many other levels. It's not an easy thing to do all the time. But like I think sometimes you just overthink it. Sometimes you think, where's my best player? How do I get him the ball the easiest way possible and let him make a play for me? And sometimes you just got to do that, which is, again, that's why I like Taylor Heineke so much. He goes back there and is like, hey, I'm not going to throw for 400 yards, but know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give Terry McLaurin the ball because Terry McLaurin is going to make plays.
yeah.
Like, why don't you go to your best players? It's like when the Steelers used to, this is just an old reference, but when the Steelers had like a 3rd and 2, instead of just going, we have the best wide receiver in the game in Antonio Brown. Why don't we just run a 5 yard slant and let him beat his guy one on one every time? They'd run a 40-yard pass down the sidelines and it would go out of bounds on
Right.
3rd and 2. Why? Just get the first down. Throw a 2 yard slant to AB and let him make a play.
Right.
It just blows my mind sometimes on these calls. I just doesn't make any sense to me, and that's probably why I like watching the Dolphins play. I'm like, all this is simple. Throw it to all your best players and let them make plays. This is great.
As my old high school football coach Bill Gleason would say, use the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So it is. So speaking of that, the Eagles, the 72 Dolphins popped a bunch of champagne after this shit show of a game. The Eagles just couldn't stop tripping over their own feet with penalties, and and they couldn't stop Brian Robinson and Gibby, my guy, my fantasy bag. Gibby didn't have a huge game this week, but it is what it is. It's Brian Robinson just kept punching him, punching him, punching him. We already kind of said that, but the Eagles are no longer the only undefeated team in the NFL. So it is what it
Yeah,
is.
I felt like one of these games was coming. It's just too often in the NFL. It's too hard for teams to just play out of their
Right.
minds every week. And whenever time you get an NFC East Division matchup like that, you're always going to get a funky game here and there. Whenever you get the Cowboys, the Commanders, the Eagles together, the Giants, you always get one of those teams. Never fails. It happens at least a couple times a year where the team that's supposed to be terrible ends up being the best team in the division. It's happened to the Cowboys about a million times where they lose to the Giants when they're terrible or
The
somebody else when they're terrible.
Colts and the Texans.
Another good example. Exactly. Colts do it all the time. All the time. The Steelers are a classic example. They beat one of the top two teams in the league every year, and they lose to one of the bottom two teams in the league every year.
Yeah.
It just happens all the time. So I thought one would be coming up. I didn't think it was going to be this Commanders game. I really didn't. Think it was going to be against Washington. I thought they're going to put them away pretty easily. But yeah, they just had a slip up. I mean, it's the NFL. Like, you can't have turnovers, you can't have penalties. Those things will even take good teams down. And if you're the Commanders, just had a good game plan. They hit what, 4 field goals? It was 255 plus yarders. I mean, it's not like they did some crazy, awesome, out of the world game plan that just won them this game. They just played solid football and they scored when they had chances.
They converted like 18 third downs or something like that.
I mean, I loved it because I was just like, why don't teams try to do that more? It's like, I was like, I understand, like, you want to make the big play. I know you want to, like, trick the other team and do something, but all these 3rd and 3s, 3rd and 2s, 3rd and 4s, and everybody chucks the ball 40 yards downfield. Just get the first down and keep your offense on the field. I mean, even if you're eating up a couple, especially when you're a team that's not as good a team, just eat that clock up. Just keep your offense on the field, keep that defense rested, and it'll keep you in the ball games. And it just doesn't seem like enough teams do it. It seems like they waste a lot of third downs, and
Right.
it's real frustrating to me. And when teams do it right, I'm like, oh, it can be done. It is possible. You can run a 3-yard route on 3rd and 2 instead of a 1-yard route on 3rd and 2. It is possible.
Speaking of draft, we're talking about the Falcons now. Speaking of draft capital, you still can't get Pitts or London from anybody, even though they're not producing at all. Like, I don't. What is it going to take to get to get anybody from they're going to be good in the future, but right now they're just not good. How do you trick somebody into trading away some of uh, the weapons from the Falcons now before they actually get a quarterback?
Yeah, that's a toughie because the people that usually are on Pitts are all over Pitts. I mean, they just love him, love him, love him. Like I said, I love that trade you got for Josh Allen for him. But usually the people that have him just are all about him, especially in premiums or 2 tight end leagues. I mean, those guys are impossible to get. Drake London is another guy. Had a couple really good weeks early in the season. And I think the thing is, those guys are getting a little more leeway because if you get out there, you get on Twitter, you get on, any kind of spaces and talking about football, almost no one's blaming those guys. No
Right.
one's going like, oh man, why do they suck? Why are they playing terrible this year? Almost no one's doing it. Everyone is all over their head coach. They're all over Ross Smith. They're all over the play calling. They're all over Mariota. And so I think in a situation where everyone's blaming everyone but them, it's going to be hard to get those guys because everybody still believes that they should be good and should be dominating, and it's not their fault.
Yeah. Well, we kind of talked about the 49ers a little bit about how they got Darius Sanders and Elijah Mitchell on the same team now sharing the backfield, and I don't, it's a tough situation, but they're a good team they got a lot of talent on that team. So, uh, the Giants, do you believe in Daniel Jones long term?
Man, this is a crazy one for me because I didn't like him coming out. I thought he was a terrible pick when they took him. I was like, this is going to blow up in their face. I was like, what are they doing? And he's not been good, but they've been terrible. As we've seen, it's something that's really hard to be a decent quarterback when you're on a really bad team. I don't care who you are. One of the few guys to be able to do it was Deshaun Watson. Somehow he was on a terrible team and was good, but then he turned around and made a terrible team decent. So I was, props to him when he did that in Houston. But Daniel Jones has been competent this year, and they've run the ball well, and they play solid defense. So, fantasy wise, am I sold on Daniel Jones? I don't think I am. Am I playing him if I've got him? I absolutely am right now, especially with the rushing upside he's had. I picked him up in a super flex salary cap league in the offseason where I only had Lamar Jackson as my only starting quarterback on my team. And I was desperate for one, and I made a little move and got him. I wasn't psyched about when I made the trade, but I was like, hey, at least I got somebody to play in my other quarterback slot, and at least when Lamar Jackson's on bye week, I can play him. He's actually been really good for me this year. If you're not in a too big of a premium league for QBs, he's actually putting up medium range points for you. Um, if you got somebody that needs a QB or you could sell him, I'm probably selling to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure what the value out there is with him. Almost everything I've seen with him is throwing him in with another QB. Like someone's like, okay, I need a QB back. I'm going to give you Mahomes and a couple throw off pieces. I need in return. I'm going to give you Derrick Henry and this other old guy, and I'll throw Daniel Jones in. To even out the QB sell of the trade. Not seeing many trades of him straight up or, one for one or him for a draft pick. So I can't tell you about how many I've seen on that, but I'm selling them if I don't need them. I don't know if I'm going to get what it's worth for him, to tell you the truth.
I feel like he's always going to be like a quarterback, like a mid quarterback two, and nothing
Yeah.
ever more than that. Kind of you know what you're going to get, and it's not always going to be good. But yeah, you could start him in a super flex, but I would never like say Daniel Jones is my QB1 on my team. I feel
Oh,
confident about
absolutely.
that.
Absolutely not. I agree with you 100%. I would never want to go into a season where he is on my team as my starting QB ever. Like I said, in a desperate need, we're super flex. I think he's been competent this year. He's knocked down the turnovers a little bit, so that's helped not getting you negative points. But I just never see him really going out there and being a stud fantasy producer for you. He's going to be that mid RB2, low end RB2. That's kind of a fill in, and I feel like most people he's their RB3. He's kind
Yeah.
of their backup in their super flex, and you're just keeping him for bye weeks and injuries.
Yeah. Trevor Lawrence keeps improving. That's a good thing. Then we're going to talk about the Jets after the bye week. They're talking about putting Elijah Moore in the slot. I mean, everybody hears about the slot, how good that is, but is the slot position for Elijah Moore actually going to be an upgrade, or is that going to be a team that doesn't really throw the ball crazy? Is this going to be a breakout situation for Elijah Moore now, or is it just going to be the same old, same old?
Yep. First off, T Law, I'm loving what I'm seeing out of him. They're still losing some games, but he's playing pretty well against some pretty good teams. He had a solid game last week in a loss to the Chiefs. I'm liking him. I still think he's going up. I got him in the offseason for people that were already kind of down on him for some decent prices. Where, I mean, when he was the clear cut 1-1 in Superflex the year before, to get him for a late first or a late first and a second, I thought was a steal in a lot of situations. So I made that move anytime I could. The Zach Wilson thing, it felt like they came into the season with a ton of confidence in him. And then they turned around, he got hurt. Flacco played out of his mind, throwing the ball everywhere. And then every time they get Zach Wilson's back, and now they don't want to throw the football at all, even with Brees Hall going down. So I'm not sure what the Jets coaching staff's going. It's almost like they started winning games and they're like, crap, we could actually be decent. We can't let this guy throw the ball around all the plays now. We gotta hold it together because we can win with our defense. And it's like they just, their philosophy changed. They got him back. We're like, hey man, you can't turn the ball over. We're only going to throw the ball like 18 or 20 times a game. You got to make it count when you do because our defense is going to hold us in there. So Zach Wilson, I still think he has upside. I never was huge on him either coming out. I just thought the Jets were about the worst landing spot for him, being in New York. But the guy's got upside still. I'm not ready to totally write him off. I feel like he's
No,
got more
right,
upside than Daniel Jones, and they're only a year apart, year and a
right.
half, 2 years apart. So I'd rather have Zach Wilson. But again, if you got Zach Wilson on your team and you're starting him in Superflex, you're probably a rebuilder. You're probably not competing at all right now in a league. So that's the case. I mean, I'd like him for the future. Maybe you could go buy him if you could get him cheap. I just don't know if anybody would be selling him cheap enough to call him a buy candidate at this point. And again, you can't go out and get him in a team that's competing because he's not going to give you anything down the stretch here as far as helping you win a league.
This is the worst trade I ever made, and I did it on purpose, full well knowing that it was going to be, not knowing that I got Trevor Lawrence and Javante Williams. I already had Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes on my team, so it was a super flex startup dynasty pretty much. and it was right after the draft ended. I traded away Mike Evans, Debo Samuel, Marvin Jones, a 2022 first and a third, and a 2023 first and a second to get Javonte Williams and Trevor Lawrence, which is a lot to pay for these guys, but I don't know. Like, I think Trevor Lawrence is worth more than Mike Evans in a first. I think Javante, if he didn't get hurt, he was ready to break out and be the man.
When he
So
was right there, I mean, there was a lot of people like I was looking to maybe sell him in a league that I was really deep in, and I was like, "Wise, what do you think? What do you think? What can I get for him?" And people were like, I just don't think I could trade him for less than two firsts. Like, I just don't think I could get rid of Javante for less than two firsts, even after he got hurt. I was asking people like, okay, I got a guy still hounding me for him. What do you think? They're like, I still think I need at least a first, like at least one, if not a first and a second for him. So I think on the surface, that trade looks like you gave up an absolute ton, but I guess it feels like how you feel those guys on the other side. I mean, Debo's probably, I think, probably the best piece you had in there in that mix.
and I think he's overrated.
And I think, and again, I think last year he played about the perfect season for him.
Yeah.
I'd honestly be surprised if you ever see him put up that kind of rushing receiving combo again in his career. I think he's a solid player. I think he's really good. I think everything broke his way as far as good plays, big plays, rushing touchdowns to make him have as big of a year he's had. I mean, I had a buddy trade him for the 1-1 last year and got Brees Hall. And he's like, I love it. Even once Brees Hall got hurt, he was like, I love that trade. And I was like, I like it too. I'd rather have Brees Hall than Debo Samuel. But I like this. Again, to me, it tells you how you feel about Lawrence. I'm a guy who, again, a year ago, he was a clear cut 1-1.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden people are like, would I even give a first for him? I'm like, you wouldn't give a late first for Trevor Lawrence? I'm like, really?
In a heartbeat.
That's what I'm saying. It just blows my mind. So, like, I actually like that trade, especially if you like Javante a lot. And the two things I like about it is I think you got value. I mean, I think you got Javante's got some value, even when he's hurt. And, he's a guy you could even possibly turn around and trade and get a two first or first and second, especially if you're getting good news over the summer. And somebody's like, that's why I haven't got rid of him, because like I've got him on a team, but that's really loaded, and he's just sitting on my IR, and I'm like, I don't need to trade him.
Right.
I can sit on him, and if he doesn't work out, he doesn't work out because I'm pretty loaded. But there's no reason for me to give him away for a late first. I might as well wait on him and see what happens.
Yeah, and that first 22 ended up being like the 110 or something, so it was nothing special. So, and then I'm in. I mean, my team is pretty stacked too. I'm like the third highest scorer in the league, so it'll be the 23. Will be probably a late first also. So in the second and the thirds.
And I even like that move more if you have a team that's competing and pretty stacked. I like that move anymore. Get two young studs that you don't have to count on right away, but you're also not totally in rebuild mode either. So I like that.
No, I just, it would have been nice because the same. I got Gibson's my running back too, but I would have had Javante going nuts and the Raiders running back. Jeez, why am I?
Josh Jacobs.
Josh Jacobs. I would have had. I mean, my team would have been just. It would have been if Williams would have panned out like he was on the whole league felt it. Everybody felt it. It was Javonte Williams' time. Then he got hurt, and it was like, come on. If I would have had Josh Jacobs and Javonte Williams on to be my running backs, my only bad spot right now is my running back spot. With Gibson. So I mean, Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen are my quarterbacks. I got really good receivers. It's like that RB2 would have been Javonte Williams. It would have been. I probably would have coasted to a title. So.
Yeah, man. I was thinking the same thing because I had him in a league where I dominated last year, and I had made some trades of my big guys like Devontae Adams for a couple firsts and stuff a couple years before, and I was sitting on CMC, JT, Javonte Williams, and Monty as my top four RBs, and then I traded Jalen Hurts, which everybody thought I was crazy in this, and this probably still doesn't look good for me, but I traded Jalen Hurts, who I picked up as a free agent his rookie year. It was on our waiver wire. I picked him up in a super flex league, and then I traded him for T Law, and the two was looking like it's going to be about the 2-1 or 2-2.
Nice.
next year, and I took T-Law, and everybody's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I like T-Law long term over Hurts. I think Hurts is going
Absolutely.
to score." I was like, "I think Hurts is going to score more points this season, but is he going to hold on that job and be great the next 5 years? I think T-Law can be great for the next 10 years." I was like, "I'm making that trade right now, especially because the guy, I traded him to." Had a lower pick from the year before, so I think it's going to be fairly high pick there. So sometimes you can make that trade, and sometimes you just got to go with the heart. Maybe people say it's a bad move, but I thought there's the deal, and then I traded CMC for 2 firsts last year. And people are like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I think CMC's worth 2 firsts if he has a good season." And it
Yeah.
was and it's a short league. It's a 10-team league, um, not super deep benches with some taxi. I'm like, man, I've got so many guys I could cut on my team that I would never cut on any other team because it's just small. So I'm like, hey, if I get all these rookies, what am I going to do with them? I'm going to have
Right.
to trade them anyway for something. I was like, it's easier for me to dump them now and pick up a stud player because I'm not going to have any space for him. Because, like I said, I made so many trades the last couple of years. I was sitting on a couple first, couple second, couple thirds for the next 3 years with a team that was already blowing up. I already had Tua, Hurts, and Herbert as my three QBs, and then turned around and picked up Kenny Pickett in a deal at the very early in the season before he was starting. I got him right before the season. So, and then I turned around and made that trade of Hurts for T Law in a second. So, I'm feeling pretty good with a young core there. And if Javante comes back, I'm going to feel great about CMC, JT, and Javante as my top three running backs.
Yeah. All right, we're off tangent here. Uh, the Lions. What the hell? Why the hell is not Swift not getting the ball? He's bitching about it. The team knows that he's a better running back. Like, what is going on there?
Yeah, this one's a little bit perplexing. I know he's been banged up, so you could, as a coaching staff, you say, hey, we're trying to limit his touches. We want to stay in the lineup. We don't want him missing time. But man, when he gets the ball, he looks pretty dynamic. I
Yeah.
mean, he looks pretty fast, pretty good, and he's got some game breaking ability. I You're not going to just get rid of Jamal Williams. I mean, he's been really solid. So it's not like you get him out. To me, with all the injuries they've had on the outside and everything else going on, and the trade of TJ Hawkinson, how do you not have them, both of those guys out there on the field and getting them more in the passing game
Right.
and doing diff things with them? I just don't understand how. If I got both those guys, I'm playing both. If I'm the Lions coaches, I'm getting those guys on the field as much as possible because between those two guys and Amon St. Brown, those are my three best players on my whole offense. I got to have
Yeah.
them all on the field. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure what they're doing either. That's a tough one. If you're a Swift guy, you're sticking with him because you can't just turn around and sit him because he's got so much upside every week. But man, it's tough right now because you're like, I want to play him, but he's getting so few snaps. He's doing some stuff with the snaps he's getting, but his snap count is so low right now.
Yeah. We already talked about Christian Watson and the Packers situation. We already talked about the Panthers and the quarterback situation. The Raiders. Does missing Darren Waller is that the entire offense here? Is it like the same as if you took Kelsey off the Chiefs, or is that what it is? It's just that it runs to the tight end and the rest of the offense doesn't work, or what?
I think Waller's important. He's nowhere near as important as Kelsey is to the Chiefs offense. I I just feel like, and maybe this is just because the way that I just feel like Josh McDaniels is just he's a snake bitten head coach. I just feel like nothing ever goes right for him.
Yeah.
Maybe he's one of those guys that just should stay. As a Colts fan, I remember when he didn't take the job and everybody was mad about it, and then they got Reich, and everybody's like, "Oh, maybe that was actually we lucked out there," and it looked like they did for a while. Um, I just don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a locker room thing. I think the deal is after the Gruden situation last year. I think the Raiders played out their ass. I really do. I think they just overplayed better than they really were. They stepped up. They won a lot of close games. I just didn't think they were as good as everybody was making them out to be. And then they added Devontae Adams, and then the hype just went through the roof when they added him in the offseason.
Right.
Um, I just I just didn't think that team was that good, especially in a tough division coming in this year. And it feels like Derek Carr's an every other year guy. He just feels like one year he kind of blows up and everything works and he throws 28 touchdowns and only 7 picks. And then the next year it's the complete opposite. And I like him as a player. I think he's a good dude. he seems like a guy I'd want to play with, but it's just like, man, it's just they just seem like the most inconsistent team all from year to year. Um, and you just never know what you're getting out of that defense. And it really, I mean, outside of Josh Jacobs and Adams, the rest of that team, it's just been blah. I mean, Mac Hollins is their number two wide receiver right now. I mean, oh my
Yeah.
god. I mean,
It,
Mac
it's
Hollins was like 12th on my depth chart on a super deep team 2 years ago on Miami's team. I mean,
right.
I just the fact that he's playing and getting all kinds of time and it just I just does. I mean, Hunter Renfro being hurt kills too, so that's been a big one. He's usually been their safety blanket. I just think they're a snake bitten team this year. I just feel like the Raiders. I think Waller does matter some, but I think it's way less than it's showing in the record this year.
We already talked about how bad the Rams were. Is Kenyon Drake a league winner for the Ravens? Like for your fantasy team on the Ravens?
I could see him being a guy where all of a sudden he puts together one or two monster games in the playoffs, and you end up like not wanting to start him, but you started him because you kind of had to, and then he blows up and he wins you the league. I could see that happening. The big question is going to be: is Gus Edwards should be coming back soon? If not in a week, maybe two. And Dobbins is still now out for the year. I know people talking about they put him back on IR for a little bit, but he's supposed to come back in 4 weeks, and it's already been two, I think. So he's set to come back. So that's the big thing with Kendon Drake is if he stays in there, I think you got a shot with him. The question is how murky is it going to get if you get Edwards and Dobbins back? Is any of those guys going to get enough carries to be starting, come fantasy playoff time?
Yep. I didn't know how that situation was going to play out, or these guys are going to come back healthy. It just nobody can stay healthy on that team. So if Drake's the only guy that can actually do it, then it is what it is. So it wouldn't be a show if we didn't talk about Jameis Winston, and I'm not really sure why they're not bringing him in as quarterback. I don't know why this. I mean, Andy Dalton is because he throws the Camaro. That's the only reason they keep him in there. I don't. Why would you want to open the whole offense up?
This one surprises me. I don't know what they're doing with Andy Dalton. I understand he's a veteran. He can come back and he played well, and he got him a couple wins this year. Um, but I don't know how you don't immediately go to Jameis as soon as Jameis is ready and see because at this point you got to decide on Jameis. Is he your guy or not? Because if Jameis isn't your guy going forward, which how can you make that evaluation when he's basically not played this whole year and he was banged up all of last year? Is Jameis your guy going forward? If not, you're the Saints. You got to get a QB here soon, and they keep trading around away first round picks.
Right.
So I don't know where they're headed. I don't understand the direction at all. I understand playing Dalton when they had to out of injury problems. Even though they won a couple when he was starting, it's not like he was winning them the games. I think sometimes NFL coaches get to this point where they're like, "Oh well, we won two in a row with the backup. We got to stick with him." Well, did he play out of his mind and win two in a row, or do you need to go back to your original starter when he gets back? Um, I don't understand this Jameis situation. I had him on two teams, and I was worried about it at the beginning of the year, and I sold him off for a decent price, just because I didn't desperately need him. And I'm glad I did. I wanted to see if he could go back to the old school Jameis putting up major fantasy points, but man, that is it's. I'm surprised at that, especially with the defense they had coming in this year. I thought they would play him out and say, "Hey, do we got our team of the future or not?"
Yeah. I was kind of hoping that they'd be healthy across the board, but that's not happening right now with Michael Thomas and Landry. It would have been nice if everybody was together and healthy on that team with Jameis slinging the ball all over the place, but it just never seems to pan out sometimes. Uh, Geno Smith is doing much better than everybody expected in Seattle. Is he the long term answer there? Are they going to say that hey we found what we got here? Let's resign this guy to a long term contract, or you think they're going to say hey you were a good stopgap, but we're going to move on? Or
It's Pete Carroll, man. You never know. But at this point, if they win the West with Geno playing the way he's played, how do you not resign him? I mean, I don't know. I don't know how they move on. They've already made the decision to move on from Drew Lock. They haven't moved on from him, but they haven't played him, and they played Geno over him. And if you figure if you're going to look at your young guy, you would have went Drew Lock and said, "Hey, do we got a guy this year or not?" But Geno, the thing is, there's no way he's going to command huge dollars. There's just no way. A 1 year older QB. I could see him going, "Hey, let's keep building. We need defense. We need more defense. They're going to have money for DK, all that stuff. Maybe they can get him to a decent, you know, median salary for a QB. If they can, I think they stick with him. Um,
They
you
might have to
know,
tag him. They might have to tag him.
and then maybe they do something like that. But unless something crazy happens, I just don't see them getting out of there unless they know there's a spot where they can get another QB. And you got to
Right.
figure. I mean, we've talked this about a million times. Drew Lock's my boy from Missouri, but you got to figure they got to. I mean, why would you not move him? Uh, I just if you're not going to play him, you already lost out this year. He's going to get another year if they you know get Gino back next year. So if not, you're like, okay, we're counting on him as a career backup at this point. Or you're seeing, I mean, I after not winning this year, I'm really nervous on Drew Lock ever getting a shot anywhere ever. If he doesn't move to a team and he's got a shot next year, I just don't see where it happens because all of a sudden he's going to be too far in his rookie contract. He's going to be getting a second round contract, which isn't going to be worth very much because he hasn't played at all. It's I think it's a weird situation. Seahawks again. I said if they win the West, which right now there's a good chance they could. I don't know how you don't re-sign the guy that you just turned around, traded a QB back away, and then said, "Hey, we like this guy even better," and then you don't re-sign him. It seems kind of crazy to me, but I can't see him being a long term future
Hold
for
on.
them.
Yeah. My daughter just walked in here. Yeah, I get it, man. But is Kenny Pickett going to get Rosened?
Dude, I sure hope not.
I know. I
I mean,
know.
I really hope not. I mean, I'll be the first to admit that my friends.
Did you press mute on accident? Hold on. We'll have to start this conversation again because you're frozen again. But my biggest fear here is that I just traded for a good Pickett in a bunch of leagues, and for whatever reason, he is, he's not put up the numbers that people kind of thought that he'd walk in doing. So I don't know what I asked you a second ago before you froze up. If Kenny Pickett going to get Rosen, then you froze. So what did you say?
Oh, sorry about that. I said, yeah, there's a video out there of me watching the draft and me losing my mind when they took Kenny Pickett because I was not in on taking a QB there at 20. I didn't want to take Pickett, didn't want to do that. Now that they've got him, they've moved on to him, they're playing him. I hope they stick with him. I think the guy's got some ability, I think he's got some talent. He's played a really tough schedule. He's got a million picks. Not a lot of them are his fault, to be honest with you. I can see the upside on him. I just can't imagine a Steelers team that took a quarterback in the first round turning around and taking another QB the next round like the Cardinals did when they took Rosen and then took Kyler Murray. Now, when they were set to be a first or second overall pick, maybe you could see that happening. They've actually won a game. They won last week against New Orleans. I actually think they can win 4 or 5 down the stretch here as their
Yeah, they got a
schedule's a
nice
little
schedule
bit
coming up.
easier. So I think they could actually get to that 7, 8 wins maybe. And then again, now you're knocking yourself to about late, mid to late first round in there.
Yeah,
Because I think you're going to have a lot of teams with 6 and 7 wins this year. It's going to come down to tiebreakers and a bunch of things for about 5 to 10 draft spots. So I could see them in it being in the teens as opposed to a top 5. Now, top 5, you're like, hey, got to go QB. I think if they end up in the teens, I'm thinking you're going to more likely see linebacker or O line there because they really
offensive
need it.
line for
Yeah,
sure.
they need O line really bad and they need inside linebacker really bad.
Yeah.
So I just don't think that's going to happen. I don't think you know something was always up with Rosen. It just seemed like no one liked him. Like every time
Yes.
he went to a team, it was like, oh, they're going to give him a shot. And it was like, oh, nope, we don't like him either. Oh, we'll give him to somebody else. Oh, maybe
Yeah.
he'll get a shot for this team. Their quarterback sucks. Nope, never got a shot. So I don't know if he just rubs everyone the wrong way. What I mean, because the guy had ability. You watch his tape in college; he was good. He had some good games for the Cardinals as a rookie.
Yeah.
But I just don't know if he was that guy that just rubbed people the wrong way, or just they didn't think he, was all in. But yeah, Rosen was a guy I totally whiffed on. Took in a couple leagues, thought Arizona was a good landing spot for him, and then obviously he's pretty much at this point he's just bouncing around as third string backup and practice squad guys, taxi squad guys. But yeah, I don't think so. I think the Steelers have decided once they made that move. to pick it from Mitch Trubisky. I think they just said, "Hey, this is our guy. We're going with him, and we're going to see what happens."
Texans picked up Eno Benjamin today. Is he the new RB1 on this team over Damian Pierce?
I don't think he's over Pierce. I think Pierce
I
is the clear
know.
cut one. I mean, but I but I
That was
do.
a tongue in cheek
I
question there.
know,
That was
I know you were, but it's like, but I do think, and I dropped him in 2 leagues because I wasn't sure he was going to be on a team, and I needed some roster space and some short benches, and I dropped him. Um, he's a guy I would go get handcuffed right now. If somebody else did the same
yes,
thing I did, and you dropped him, I'd jump out there and pick him up, especially if I got Damian Pierce, because it's not like if Pierce goes down, the Texans are going to start throwing the ball all the time. They're going to keep running the ball. And
right.
Benjamin actually was pretty competent for the Cardinals when he played for Connor. I really would love to hear something from the Cardinals about why they just cut him out of nowhere. It seems like he would have had to do something like off the
Yes,
field that they would just turn around and cut him because he had played pretty solid. And it's not like Connor is healthy all the time. I mean, he's already had to play a couple times for him this year. So just turning around and just like blatantly cutting him out of 2 weeks away from starting just seemed very, very weird to me.
there had to be some kind of contract situation if he paid so many plays or play, whatever. Something had to go wrong, or he slapped one of the coaches, or got a fight in the locker room, or something that we're going to hear about later. But yeah, it was
I
weird.
feel like I feel like there was no one talked about it. No one said anything, and I'm like, how is this guy just all of a sudden getting cut? He was just playing like tons of playing time the last couple of weeks, and just gets cut, and no one says anything about it. Just seems really strange to me.
Yeah, right, right. We talked about Titans before, and then the Vikings. I don't know if you watched that Bills Viking games the other day, which is absolutely amazing. Hawkinson's fitting in here well. Jefferson's amazing. Cousins is just kind of doing Kirk Cousins stuff. This team is, like you said before, this is a really good team. It's just an all around It's a well balanced team. They have a good running back, good run game, good receiver, good tight end, decent quarterback. They have many levels where they can beat you on. So what do you think about this Vikings team, and where do you see them shaping up in the NFC this year?
Yeah, first of all, that was an amazing game. Anybody who missed that game, man, you missed out. That's the type of game is what makes the NFL what it is. That was just excitement down the end, crazy plays. Just when you think it's over, another team makes a play. I mean, that's why NFL is just so exciting when it goes right. You have
Yeah,
those games where it goes wrong, 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 and it's real bad. But those are the games that suck you right back in. The Vikings were a sleeper team for me this year. A lot of people said I was crazy, but I said if you take any other competent quarterback and you put him in Kirk Cousins' shoes, I think the Vikings would be getting a lot more looks. There's just this Kirk Cousins hate that just doesn't go away. People
right.
just either don't like him in real life, they don't like him in fantasy. Even though he produces in real life, he produces in fantasy. People just are out on Kirk Cousins. I understand he has a terrible record in big primetime games, playoff games. He just doesn't seem to get the big wins, but he's a guy that does something. And they did everything to put quality guys around him. I just thought they would be a really solid team, and I was worried about the NFC North. I just didn't think it was going to be that good, and I thought if anybody could sneak out of there other than the Packers, I thought it was the Vikings. Now, did I think they would be 8-1 good? No, I thought they could easily be a 6-3, 7-2 team maybe at this point. Do I think they end up getting the number one seed in the NFC? I don't know. Now they've got an easier schedule than most of these teams. I think the NFC East is going to beat each other up. I think it's going to be tough for the Giants to stay 7-2 where they're at. Cowboys 6-3, and then been seeing the NFC South and East just been or South and has been terrible, and so I think they've got a good shot at maybe the 1 or 2 seed. But gotta love Justin Jefferson a couple down weeks, and then just man, the guy the stats were off the charts, but if you watch the game, man, the guy was making big play after big play,
Right.
and he just elbow inches from another touchdown at the end of the game. Um, Again, Kirk Cousins, he's a guy I keep going out and getting because you can get him for cheap a lot of times because there's so many people that don't like him. And he's just a solid QB2 for you in a lot of leagues. I mean, and that Superflex league, he just kind of can be that rock. He's never going to have, monster games, but usually he's pretty consistent 200, 250 yards, 1 or 2 touchdowns. And every once in a while, he'll give you a little rushing touchdown, punch one in. Um, But I think they're a good team. The Vikings are highly underrated. I think people were real shocked when they played as well as they did at Buffalo.
All right, we usually evaluate a team on here, but it's already been 2 hours, and so we'll save that for next week. It's getting close. We're gonna do all this stuff. We're gonna do this waivers and trades and all that kind of stuff most weeks, but today we spent a little more time kind of deep diving through all the teams. So I'm John McGlynn, John McGlynn 75 on the Twitter machine. He is Justin Taylor at JT Orange. Anything else you got to tell anybody, Justin, before we take off?
Well, good luck with the injuries and the bye weeks. Couple more weeks here to fight through until playoff time. So good luck. Hope everybody gets their waiver wire picks and figures out a way to make it in the playoffs.
Yeah, I've had 11 wins in the fishbowl for about the last 5 weeks now. I need to get 2 more wins and just bring all my guys. Andrews is coming back, and
Two
you
more.
know, two more. Two. I got to get 13 wins. I think I got it by points anyway, but I just want to get there on wins and points and just whatever,
I,
call it a day.
I
But
yep, I snuck in last week with Justin Fields' monster game. Got me 200 points in Scott Fishbowl. So I ended up winning the week and got me to 13-7. So I'm officially into the playoffs, which is awesome because last time I played, I finished dead last in my division and won one game all year. I'm happy to be in the playoffs and redeem myself after my terrible showing the last time out.
yeah, I started out hot, and you were kind of kicking yourself in the arse, and now it's completely the opposite. I was like the rabbit in the hare. I took a nap for a little bit, and you passed me up, and it's like, oh, what the shit. But hopefully, we both get to make it to playoffs and
Mhm.
keep talking about it for many weeks to come. So,
Absolutely.
all right, home slice. I will talk to you later. Thanks a lot for joining me tonight. Goodbye,
Thanks, guys.
everybody.